For the one who don't know me, my name is Maha and I'm an associate professor, transplant nephrologist at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And I have the pleasure today to moderate the healthcare initiative and session. I would like first of all to salute UOKANA for the huge leap it made over the previous 10 months and thank the organization committee for the great job they've done today. In a very short time, by the way. Better healthcare is central to human happiness and well-being. And it also makes an important contribution to economic progression and prosperity as healthy populations live longer, are more productive, and save more money with less healthcare expenditure. So our session today is, we're fortunate to have a panel of experts to address future initiative and obstacles. Our first speaker is, just a minute, here we are. SAPA Initiative, Sudan Alternative Health Action, which is SAHA, by Abdelrahim Ballal. He's M.D. DPH, and he's a director of the research and training at International Interfaith Peace Corps here in Herndon.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية شكرا ليوكانا لدعوة سابا إنها تقدم المبادرة بتاعت صحة. حيكون جزئين، جزء فيديو 5 دقائق عن المبادرة overall. بعد ذاك short presentation عن the technical part of the initiative. الموجودين إن شاء الله يكون الصوت كويس ومرغوب.
منظمة غير ربحية إنسانية علمية مهنية.
عضوية سابا تتكون من جميع الأطباء وأطباء الأسنان والصيادلة السودانيين في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية مجموعين في جسم واحد. العضوية لها دور كبير جدا في تشكيل نشاط المنظمة والبرامج بتاعها وتنفيذها.
بتهدف برامج سابا لخدمة السودانيين داخل الولايات المتحدة وفي كل أنحاء السودان. الرسالة دي محاولة لتقديم تفصيل قصير موجز لمساهمة ضمينا والتي شغالين عليها في ساعة من شهر مارس 2019 وهي مبادرة السياسات الصحية البديلة في السودان Sudan Alternative Health Action اختصارا صحة. هي مبادرة استراتيجية تعاونية لوضع استراتيجيات صحية وهدفها الأسمى والبعيد نظام صحي عادل متكامل في السودان، سياسات فعالة تحكم مختلف مناحي التخطيط الاستراتيجي لكل مكونات النظام الصحي.
الهدف المباشر والعمل المبادرة هو خلق منصة للتعاون وتأسيس منهجيات للعمل. أهم ما فيها لمراجعة كل السياسات الصحية لكل مكونات النظام الصحي الموجودة حاليا والعمل على تطوير سياسات بديلة واختبار السياسات دي للتأكد من فعاليتها ونجاحها عبر استخدام نموذج المحاكاة الكلينيكية الحاسوبي واللي حيدرس السياسات الصحية المطروحة تحت مختلف السيناريوهات المستقبلية إلى أن نصل إلى اختيار أفضل وأكثر السياسات كفاءة قبل احتمال التطبيق. ده طبعا حيساهم في توفير موارد الدولة ويضمن نتائج أفضل. دي صورة بانورامية واسعة للمبادرة الصحة وهي مبادرة تعاون فيها كافة الأطراف المشتغلة في المجال الصحي الواسع وتعمل على منصة تدرس السياسات الراهنة تقترح البدائل تقوم بتجريبها واختبارها ومرة ثانية إعادة اختبار وتجريبها عبر نماذج حاسوبية ذكية تحاكي الواقع إلى حد كبير.
منهجية مبادرة الصحة بتعتمد على المكونات الستة للنظام الصحي لمنظمة الصحة العالمية WHO وده هو الإطار العام للمبادرة بالإضافة للمحددات الاجتماعية للصحة بعنصر سابق. كمان حنستخدم أدوات منظمة الصحة العالمية وأطر ومبادئها التوجيهية مثلا مقياس أداء النظام الصحي والصحة العامة والتغطية الصحية الشاملة. في مبادرة الصحة بنحاول نجاوب على بعض الأسئلة. مثال: هل الأفضل إدارة الصحة بواسطة 19 وزارة ولائية أم 5 أقاليم يقود مدراء صحة فنيين؟
الجهات الأصيلة والتي متوقع انضمام المبادرة يكفي مقدمتها طبعا وزارة الصحة الاتحادية كشريك أساسي، والجهات الحكومية الأخرى، شركات القطاع العام والخاص التي لها علاقة برعاية الصحة الأولية كشركات التأمين والأدوية والأجهزة الطبية ومقدمين وتلقي الخدمات الصحية.
واخيرا من المتوقع ان تقوم هذه المبادره بتقييم التحديات اللي بتواجه النظام الصحي الحالي في السودان،
وبالتالي وضع سياسات واستراتيجيات صحيه اساسيه ستناقش خلال مؤتمر عام يضم خبرات محليه ووطنيه ودوليه.
وطبعا حتشكل الاستراتيجيات دي الخطه المستقبليه لوزاره الصحه الاتحاديه من اجل تحقيق صحه افضل للسودانيين.
في نهايه المبادره سيتم تمليك وزاره الصحه الاتحاديه النظام بتاع نموذج المحاكاه الديناميك الحاسوبه التي تستخدم في تخطيط الاستراتيجي المستقبلي.
ومن هنا بندعوكم جميعا لدعم مبادره الصحه والتعاون على جميع المستويات وحنبنيهم.
صورة عامة عن المبادرة ومكوناتها، وشايفين إلى الآن إحنا عندنا 25 بارتنر شركاء انستتيوشنز هم جزء من المبادرة. في الجزء الثالث بحاول أمر بصورة سريعة على البرنسبلز والكونسبتس اللي اتبنت على المبادرة. إحنا بديناها من شهر مارس الماضي، يعني يمكن بعد 3 شهور من كونت المنظمة. في إنه معظم الناس بيبدوا يشتغلوا على الإيميديت نيدز تحت بعد الترانزيشن، وبالتالي محتاجين لشوية نظرة على المدى الأبعد ونظرة على المستوى الأعلى بيج بيكشر. فبنمر على نقاط سريع سابقة وفيو عن التشالنجز شنو. وافتكر اليوم النقاشات اللي دارت الصباح أكدت لنا التشالنجز اللي كنت خدتيها هنا هي حقيقة هي الريسك الكبير اللي ممكن يقابل الإيفوليوشن. احنا الآن انتهينا مرحلة الإيفوليوشن ممكن تكون هي disruption of the previous system. الإيفوليوشن محتاج لزمن، محتاج لرؤية مختلفة عن الريفوليوشن فقط. نبذة سريعة، السابقة تكونت في يناير، الآن احنا عندنا حوالي 350 عضو فيزيشنز في أمريكا. هنا عقدنا الشهر الماضي أول مؤتمر تأسيسي وكان حضور كبير جدا جدا. والإيرث حتى العمل تشمل education, training, and development, research, advocacy, community service, and the advocacy for social justice and human rights. لأنه أفتكر إنه الphysicians in a good position to work in this area of advocacy for social justice and human rights. بحكم إنهم بيقدموا خدمة كبيرة، مجال الصحة هو ممكن الدومين الكبير جدا اللي بيهم كل زول. محتاجين الناس كلها يكون عندهم equitable access للهيلث كير. دي الفيجن ما حنجيب فيها كثير. في التشالنجز الاساسيه اللي نتكلم عنها انه مع انه في تقدم كبير جدا جدا في الهيلث كير براكتسز، ستيل معظم دول العالم يسترجل في انها تحقق الهدف الاول بتاع الخدمات الصحيه هو reducing the burden of disease. مع كل هذه السنوات كل المحاولات ستيل الهدف ده قصير على التحقيق في معظم دول العالم. الجزء الثاني انه معظم التدخلات تحت الهيلث كير الهيلث بابليك هيلث short for their aims، لانه في الغالب بيتم الديزاين حقها as piecemeal fragmented addressing specific problems instead of taking or addressing the whole system as one unit. الجزء الأخير الرابع our way of thinking. في الغالب الناس التدريب بتاع thinking بتاع conventional way of thinking is analytical and linear thinking. العالم ما كده، العالم very complicated والكونتكست اللي بتشتغل فيه غالبا فيه كثير من الفيدباك لوبس بتبدأ من هنا من A it will lead to B لكن B it will lead to A again. If we do not design our solutions based on this way of thinking, في الغالب will fail. الشيء الأخير برضو الثاني إنه البوبوليشن needs is in constant change، يعني بشكل كبير بحسب التغيير الموجود في الريسك فاكتورز والديسيز epidemiology وما إلى ذلك. الإشكال الكبير وشفته الليلة وشفته من ما بدأت موضوع إنه الحكومة الانتقالية most probably people jump to solutions, jump to conclusions and propose solutions without spending time in defining the problem. الناس بيقعدوا يومين عشان يحللوا مشكلة ويوصلوا للمشكلة ويشتغلوا 4-5 سنوات عشان يحلوها. Although they didn't did their homework well في إنه قعدوا وحللوا المشكلة كويس عشان يصلوا لتحديد المشكلة، وده الجزء الكبير جدا في الحل. إنك تقدر to define the problem in a well specific terms. كثير من الناس هنا بيتكلموا عن داتا، إنه ما في داتا في السودان. في 3 different databases، في mental databases موجودة knowledge وسط الناس، جزء منها جزء منها بسيط جدا عبارة عن numerical database. When discussing problems, we need to use all these different databases. النولج الموجودة في أذهان الناس من خبرتهم والموجودين في السودان موجودين في مختلف الأماكن هي معرفة عالية جدا. في إشكال كبير اللي هو المايند سيت بتاعنا. في اوفر كونفيدنس بعض الأحيان في السوليوشن اللي نطلع بها. And we have to question ourselves. We should have doubts. في شيء لا نصل لأنه في بعض الأحيان يبقى arrogance. So we have to think again and rethink as a team. القصة الكبيرة أفتكر إنه في أحيانا بيحصل جروب فيلير لأنه بنبقى زي بارت تيم. We cheer everything coming and we fool ourselves في إنه نستفيد من الفيدباكس الموجودة في السيستم. We ignore it totally. فالدعوة هنا إنه الناس يحاولوا to sit back, spend some time in defining the problems in each sector, in each specific system, and think in a wider system way. Generally, SAHA and overarching goal بتاعنا إنه towards equitable, integrated, and comprehensive health system. In general, most of the systems goals, health system goals, is around accessibility to healthcare, quality of healthcare, and equity of health care. And the focus is on population health. SAHA is utilizing system thinking and dynamic modeling for analyzing the health sector policies, options in Sudan through collaborative process of joint learning approach. We bring people together to talk to each other, establish channels of communication, sharing perspectives to reach the best way of analyzing the current context, come up with options, and then we can use the available technology and approaches to test these options for the best. So it is a platform. SAHA is a platform for multidisciplinary teams to collaborate using unified or shared concept tools and processes. This is I like it. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use when we create them. We have to think in a different way to solve the problems. Because these problems, we create them. We, I mean collectively, we create these problems. And if we think in the same way, we will not be able to solve them. And one of the ways of thinking about it is to think in a systematic way. The system is defined as organized, interrelated, interdependent, integrated whole. And the most important point here is that it is interconnected. If you touch any part of the system, it will affect the other parts. And there will be usually consequences, sometimes unintended consequences, but it will be some consequences there. So the health system components are based on WHO, as you can see, these 6 components, the leadership and governance, health system financing, human workforce, health service delivery, health information system, access to essential medicine and pharmaceuticals. And we add as general one is the social determinant of health. All these factors are interconnected, interrelated, and you should address them all at the same time. And you should test the interaction between these different systems. The stakeholders in the health sector, just a quick review of Sudan's situation, we found that the government, insurance companies, those who pay for the service, consumers, employers, healthcare providers, pharmaceutical industry, healthcare technology industry, health professionals associations, and the trade unions. Each of these actors have specific roles and have their own specific drivers and motivation to be in this business. And you have to bring them together to discuss the options and see how they can contribute to the solution. Some people look at some players here as problems. If anyone is part of the problem, they should be part of the solution. So you have to bring them in and work with them collectively. System thinking has specific principles, which is about looking to the big picture and look at the long-term, short-term outcomes. It's usually dynamic, complex, and interdependent nature of the system. You can count for the measurable and non-measurables or soft indicators. And we are all part of the system, of some sort of system, and usually there is unintended consequences, the assumptions, the values and beliefs in the system affect us all. And you can take yourself as an example. Do you think that you have been excelled in your area of expertise because you are more smart than people who are in Sudan? Or because you came here and became part of a larger system, gave you the opportunity to excel? So we have to take all this in account. I was not happy when people talk about people in Sudan, there is a problem of human resources. Not a problem of human resources, it's a problem of a system that needs to be restructured so people can be productive, efficient, and can contribute positively to the solution. Most of us are aware of this way of the metaphor of every one of us will be looking to the elephant from one point and think that that's the elephant and give it a description based on its perspective. Generally, this is the enterprise view, and SAHA is working at the top level of the policies, the level above the strategic planning and solutions. So it is at that level of policies which will govern all the strategic planning. And generally, the structure of, think about it, the first level above the C is just events and tasks. And most of the people will be working that firefighting approach, addressing simple issues and things that they think it is the problem. Although the problem usually down, you can see a pattern in that, and the main issue will be in the structure, the system structure and the mental structures. And the solutions, the high leverage solutions usually is deep down in the structure. And you need to address the structure to correct the behavior of the system rather than only talking about the symptoms. In SAHA, we have 3 processes. The first process is building partnership. And it's hard. It's not an easy job to bring people together to work together. And we need to also, we use a different approach that we do not ask people what you bring to the table. This is usually the approach in the partnership building. We do not ask them what you bring to the table. We ask them what you can benefit from this partnership. So you bring them down all that we are all sharing the same vision. We can benefit from each other instead of amplifying this ego and self-interest. So we talk with the people in a different language, to bring them together. And that was successful in bringing 25 institutions to be part of SAHA. And we are looking forward to bring more people to be part of it. The second part is capacity building and context analysis and options. The third one is building dynamic simulation models using the dynamic modeling softwares to test these options and to see their impact on the system in the future. After that, you select the best one. This is overview of the methodology, the concept we built using dynamic system dynamics, system thinking, and dynamic modeling to build conceptual models. And then we'll be using the computer software to build the mathematical models and then the application. Example of the questions that we would like to ask this part of it, but the main questions is like in governance, is it possible to manage healthcare sector in Sudan in a more efficient way? What are these options? And what are their impacts on the performance? One of the questions, like for example, the gender issue in healthcare. Should we continue this with the current policy, or we need, for example, male-female balance in the production of the human resources based on our context in Sudan? We need more people to work in the rural areas. We have diverse and distributed populations. What do we need to continue producing doctors, physicians? We have more than about 70 medical schools. Is that what the health system needs? We invest in this career, and within years they are out of the country. What policies we need to put for human production? What policies we need for financing? And these main big questions, I think what the SAHA project would like to explore and find some suggestions for them. The deliverables is we will have a context analysis and problem definition. We will have policies options, and we will have this dynamic simulation. And this will be discussed in a national workshop, most probably by maybe December or January. These are the milestones. I will not go through it. Just the main thing is that how the structure of the initiative is. We are 4 people for SAHA management team. My colleague Dr. Inas, myself, Dr. Mohamed Isa, and Dr. Yasir from SAHA. We are just managing the whole thing. We have steering committee. We have advisory board. Have 9 expertise. We have local office in Sudan. And we are starting almost selecting the core experts in the specialized technical teams, and they will be just a coordinating team from the leaders of these 7 teams. This is over all the initiatives. Those are the organizations, 25 organizations, and their names. I would like only to share this issue of where we are. We start at confusion. The collaboration is not an easy thing. You need to build it step by step. It's not about only you do your part, I do my part. It's better to be at the level of doing things together. And this is what we are seeking to do to avoid these outcomes. Everyone is doing his part, and then we have 0 outcomes down here. So this is a motto. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Nazik Hammad, who is a medical oncologist and associate professor at the Department of Oncology, Queen's University in Canada. And her talk is Postgraduate Medical Training, a Track to Alleviate the Burden of Health Crisis.
شكرا عليكم قاعدين لسه. شكرا على يوكانا إنه عزمتونا نجي من كندا. I'm honored to represent Canada. I hope إنه المرة الجاية I can see a lot of physicians, other University of Khartoum graduates. وشكرا على انك كنت عملت يوكانا North American institution. So anyway, I changed the title a little bit to be about redesigning medical education to improve health outcomes. So everybody talked about the triple burden of disease. For the sake of time, we'll go over it quickly. In the unfinished agenda, listen in the malaria, TB, in the malnutrition, reproductive health problems, mortality, in the emerging challenges of heart disease, cancer, mental health injury, حتى obesity والناس كلها لما تمشي السودان تلاقيهم بيصلوا قاعدين لأنه عندهم مشاكل بتاع ركب. So this is a very important public health issue بالمناسبة. And بعدين عندنا health risks بتاعت pandemics or climate changes التصحر والفيضانات والحاجات. Anyway, we are moving now beyond epidemics to the era بتاعت syndemics. اللي هي إنه epidemic disease number 1 and disease number 2 لما نلاقي worse outcomes. لما نفكر في الميديكال education المفروض نفكر في إنه what is the driving principle behind that اللي هو المفروض sustainable development goal. بالتحديد goal number 3 which is health and well-being for all. وحتى within sustainable development goals عندنا كمية من التارجتس جزء من levels of health coverage والvaccines والgrowth injuries وأهم حاجة لكن في this talk اللي هو SDG 3C substantially increase financing, recruitment and development and training of health professionals. According to the health professional 21st century context or agenda, everybody is talking about health systems. Lakin we should know what the health system can function without health workers. It's a human right now, according to the WHO Workforce 2030, equitable access to health workers. لأنهم هم change agent and offer the human link for translation of knowledge. غير كده نحن في الميديسين بنحب الايفيدنس بيس. طيب برا وهنا for المدى بتاع الديمقراطية versus الديكتاتورية. 30 years democracy is no longer an abstract idea. لما تجي للمسألة بتاعت الهيلث. It's not يعني مسألة زي زمان لما كنا في الكافتيريا الطب يجوا يطردونا من الكافتيريا يقول لكم ما تعملوا نشاط سياسي في الكافتيريا. It's beyond that. It's about democracy is now evidence-based. الآخر paper نشر القريب في Lancet اللي they analyzed 170 countries and they found that if you have democracy, you can achieve a lot, especially in the disease اللي هي محتاجة للinfrastructure ما تعتمد على العامل الخارجي زي heart diseases and accidents, the cancer and كده. So it's no longer a luxury and it's no longer a political belief يعني شو ولا كوز ولا كده. These are basic human rights. Anyway, طيب بالنسبة ل what is happening in Sudan. هبتدي دايما it's best to start with the good news. The good news إنه Sudan officially التزام الفن. So congratulations. The good news الثانية إنه traditions. يعني عندنا خلال الناس على الفضل وغيرهم هي still موجودة. And they persist and they are alive and amplified to the young generation. هي مسألة social responsiveness and engagement and leadership. يعني من دور الأطباء والصيادلة وغيرهم من health professionals في الثورة دي. الباد نيوز. أول حاجة لما adaptive system that was created by the Islamic is still very much alive. الحاجة الثانية إن حصلت عملية تعديل في السمرايزيشن اللي أنا بستعمل هنا تكنيكال تيرم أشرح لكم. اللي حصل شنو upscale without transformation. حصل significant ethical breaches and rampant conflict of interest. يعني الحاجة اللي حصلت إنه وزير الصحة يقوم يعرض الجامعة عشان يفتح جامعة بالإنجليزي عشان يقوم يكسر مستشفى الخرطوم. دي يعني حاجات كده يعني في I can't say anything. That's it?
That's good enough, Wadija.
Yes. I just can't say anything. الحاجة الثانية إنه حصل destruction of public institutions والdestruction بتاع primary care في السودان. I don't know what's, this is not my computer anyway. So حصل deinstitutionalization of graduate medical education. الحاجة الثانية في rampant underinvestment, underemployment, unemployment, oversupply, undersupply, and maldistribution. يعني نشوف دي كلها nowadays كلها diseases at the health system, especially when it comes to the work. What do you mean by upscale? Upscaling is to increase something. اللي حصلت في أفريقيا في سهران أفريقيا ما بين 1990 to 2009 168 schools. زي ما شفتوا هذه بشوية إن السودان في 70 medical schools. لكن لما احنا عايزين upscale عايزين transformative upscale اللي هو معناته شنو؟ إنك أنت تقوم تعمل sustainable reforms و system strengthening بتحتاج لثلاث حاجات حسب WHO population health needs عشان تحسن الأوتكم بتحتاج حاجات quantity, quality, and relevance. Quantity يعني احنا how many doctors, how many nurses, how many pharmacists do we need? And quality, are they good? Can they do their job well? And relevance, even if they are good, they know everything. يعني واحد بيعمل لك كارد أو قسطرة تحت القلب لما عنده إمكانيات زي دي يعني يعني عشان يمشي عبرة ولا يمشي كوستي أو كده. الحاجة الثانية من المسألة بتاعت الكواليتي إنه poor people cannot afford poor quality. الزول الفقير ما يقدر على إنه ياخد quality bad لأنه الإمكانيات بتاعته محدودة. ودي واحدة من الكونتكست. الحاجة الثانية الثالثة اللي هي إنه إحنا if we are going to create quality health professionals, this is my father, and this is part of my family. وهنا نحن we have to think each resident or each registrar graduating from the program are they competent to treat your family or not? That's the bottom line. طيب نرجع للفلكسنا ريبورت. الميديكال education حصلت two reforms. واحد 1910 الميديكال سكول اللي احنا مش شايفينها ومشينا ليها ونعرف ان صورة الحالة دي جات من وين؟ جات من الأبرام فلكسنا ريبورت من جون هوبكنز اللي هو اتعمل between 1905 و 1910 anyway in that period. المهم قام عمل ريبورت للكارنيجي فاونديشن وخدت الأساس لإنه الميديكال سكول بالشكل كيف. من الريكومنديشن بتاعته انه reduce the number of medical schools في اليونايتد ستيتس الوقت ده 1905 من 155 schools ل 31 only. بعد ذاك الحياه بتاعت انه لازم يكون في سنتين بتاعت اندر جراد ويكون في لازم يكون الفيزيشن تعمل هاي سكول يعني حاجات كده بيزك يعني ما تخيلنا جات من ساكت جات من بعد الفلكسمان ريبورت. طبعا في سايد افكتس ليه والاندوكونز لكن الادوما مش هنتكلم انا ما عندي عنها بالسودان. المساله بتاعت البرايفت فاندنج اللي هي حاصله في السودان ميديكال education. طبعا الناس اللي عندهم برو برايفت فاندنج بيقول لك ان احنا الببليك سورسز ما تلاقي الحكومه ما عندها قروش احنا محتاجين للتنين والدكاتره الدكاتره بحاجه وبتاع. الجود بروز بتاعها الكونس انه في genuine hazard of defect summarization والاتمنه بتاعت التمنه مستعملها WHO والبروسيس اللي هي البروسيس بتاع unregulated unaccredited low quality schools ودي بتحتاج ل greater transparency and oversight both nationally and globally. عندنا two types of privatization في السودان. private medical school اللي هي government اللي هو عماره الحله ومفتاح لها medical school. في significant ethical breaches زي ما قلنا في أو بسبب حصل destruction of public institutions. في الحاجة النوع الثاني اللي هو private stream in public institutions اللي هو تدخل كمية من الناس بالبشر. طبعا في طبعا حتى يقول لك أنت أستاذ تدفع 50 جنيه في السنة يعني حاجات كده لكن هسه دي ممكن يدخلوا ناس بالقروش. الحاجة دي we need to study it. As you said, ما محتاجين to destroy everything. في مثلا الميديكال سكول المفروض تتقفل، لكن احنا بنجيب what is the effect on quality بالنسبة للبرايفت ستريم والرول بتاع الادميشن كرايتيريا والسوشيال اكاونتبيلتي. anyway نمشي لقدام. بعد بالنسبة للجراديويت ميديكال education post graduate ability لنا الانترفيست اللي هم الاخصائية الباطنية والجراحة وكده. في حاجة اسمها سودان ميديكال سبيشاليزيشن بورد اللي هو قانون كيسان في late 90s. I can't remember the exact year. اللي هو جاب قرار جمهوري. والمشكله شنو انه يزيد عن accredited body ويزيد عن educational institution on itself. يعني انت ممكن accredited body هو ذاته to deliver الابلكيشن بعين الاساتذه، المعين يعني الامتحانات صار ممكن يحدد accredited body ريفيوز مستعمل في كندا مثل ما مستعملين في اليو اس تو ماتش، لكن السبيشاليزيشن حصل له بيجي ديفورس كومبليتلي من اليونيفرسيتيز. يعني بيجي انت عشان تبدا في الصيدليه ما بتكون تابع لجامعه خرطوم ولا لجامعه الجزيره وكده، صح كان زمان التخصص كله في جامعه خرطوم. الخطوه الثانيه كان ممكن انه التخصص كان في جامعه الجزيره ولا في ثاني جامعه عشان يزيدوا عدد الريزيدنسيز، لكن شالوا كله من اليونيفرسيتيز. السؤال انه دي democratization or is it dictatorial concentration of powers in the hands of few؟ الإفكت بتاع ده على اليونيفرسيتي and its specialization itself، وحتى هم لقوا recognition من الورد فاونديشن of medical education، لكن الاكريديتيشن ستيب كلها بس شكلية، في جامعات الطالب، في جامعات الأستاذ whatever it is. anyway فقط الناس اللي بيدرسوا في الميديكال سكولز وفي الفارماسي سكول هم الألتيميت ريسورس لأنهم they generate knowledge. They produce knowledge, they transfer it, and they will form the new generation. As في السودان الفقط بيجي عندنا huge pool of mobile cadre of faculty, which is good news إنه عندنا كمية كبيرة من الناس بتدرس، لكن تلقاهم حاملين من مستشفى لمستشفى من جامعة لجامعة. يعني it's okay when you come start in career، لكن الحاجة تعمل severe constraints for research, leadership, and career development. الحاجة برضه بتعمل weakening للlearner teacher relationship اللي هو الرول موديلينج، الكوتشنج، المنتورشيب، النيرشرينج، الريجسترارز از تيتشر ذاته يعني انت هاو تو اوبزرف، وبيخلي كده الكوريكولم اللي هو الاعداد الضاره في الميديكال اديوكيشن تكون يعني تضغط لانه ما بيكون فيها اوفر سايت من الفاكولتيز. anyway so where we go from here? We should enforce the WHO Global Workforce 2030. We should ask how to train and retain, and we should start thinking about the training for export. يعني مثلا زي family planning, family medicine ده اللي هو تخصص جديد في السودان. It's excellent idea. المفروض يكون عندنا كمية من الفاميلي ميديسن physicians ضخمة جدا، لكن المشكلة إن التخصص الهسي ده منظم جاي عشان شنو؟ الناس الخليج بيحبوا الفاميلي ميديسن. الناس بيجت وانا I'm not blaming الناس اللي بيمشوا فاميلي ميديسن عشان يمشوا الخليج، الناس محتاجة تعيش مش كده، لكن how do we invest لإنه نخلي الناس دي دورتين والفاميلي ميديسن ده عنده كلاود في الفاميلي في يعني في السيستم. بعدين الحاجة بتاعت الكيترينج تو ذا upper middle class، نحن كلنا عايزين أولادنا يكونوا دكاترة، لكن ذات المشكلة إنه how do we create some social accountability ونرجع الادميشن بتاع الناس الفقراء الجايين من المناطق البعيدة في السودان، لأنه مهما حتى لو مش السعودية برضو عندها ميزة في إنه بعضهم ممكن يكونوا. بعدين addressing the health disparities and inequalities for the sake of time. What do we need? Universal workforce, universal availability, accessibility, coverage and quality, and vision بتاعنا to mobilize knowledge, engage in critical thinking and reasoning عشان نطلع members of locally responsive and globally connected teams. طيب الريفورمز دي how do we go about reforms؟ في domains بتاعت education and training institution. Number 2, accreditation. Number 3, financing and sustainability. Number 3, monitoring and evaluating, and governance planning. What we need to incorporate اللي هي حاجة الريفورم بعد 100 سنة من فليكسنا جانا الريبورت بتاع فرانك اللي هو this is what should govern all universities of especially medical schools. اللي هو إنك بتعمل 2 types of reforms: instructional reforms and institutional reforms. لكن الانستراكشن ريفورم دي ممكن نصبر شويه في السودان، هي طريقه بندرس بيها، يعني محتاجين نعمل تشينجز لكن we can wait a little bit، ومحتاجين نعمل institutional reforms where we teach الجامعه ذات الشكل عشان عندنا 4 enabling actions. Number 1, mobilizing leadership. What's the meeting result? Using the mobilization of leadership. لأنه في كمية من leaders في education and thinkers الحاجة الثانية enhance investments وأونلاين accreditation نطلع نشوف يعني ما ضروري نقوم نكسر مجلس التخصصات، ممكن نخليه بقى المجمل اوكي نعمل حاجة نخليها لكن نخليه as an accredited body ونشيل منه الصلاحيات بتاعت انه هو يكون يران every day to day education details. الحاجة الثانية strength and global learning. مش يفضل السلايد دي for the sake of time. Just remember إنه institutions program should address population needs. محتاجين إنه الكوريكولم بتاعنا يكون فيه الهيومن رايتس والسوشيال ريسبونسبيلتي اند اثكس. دي بقت نو لونجر يعني حاجات بيستغلها الناس بيقولوا عليها حتى نحن ما كنا بنعتبر الببليك هيلث بنسميه ناس الكوميونتي ميديسن حاجه ثانيه اسمها كوميونتي ميديسن والسميه والكومونيه ناس الكومونيه. If now these things have become central everywhere, and as أنا كنت program director متخصص فيه, this is I spend most of my time doing this work, and evidence should be نحن المفروض ندي data and evidence. Academic systems, public financing is very important. In the private innovation تكون الexception مش النورم. بمعنى الحاجة بتاعت الشعار بتاع مجال التعليم ده كان لما بيرفعوا الناس على انهم بينتموا لأحزاب معينة وجهات معينة. لكن الليلة بيبقى part of the WHO and the United Nations strategy في health equity. Private financing ممكن يكون لكن يكون set for ground rules to optimize health and تكون في quick rules. الفيزيشن اللي احنا عايزين نطلعه الكومبتنسز المفروض نتبع المبدأ بتاع الكومبتنسز يعني يكون عندهم system skills يكون عندهم patient encounter skills system improvement and ethics and biomedical knowledge of the world. نستفيد من الديجيتال سكيب اللي حصلت في السودان الناس كلها بقت ما عندهم كمبيوتر طوال اللي على السيل فون we use that and information is now ubiquitous ومحتاجين للبايوميديكال نولج كلاود واللي الشغل اللي بيكون الصحة ممكن نخش فيه وهنا we already doing some of that work. How can we engage؟ احنا قاعدين في القاعة دي how can we engage؟ How can we contribute؟ مفروض نعرف انه يعني medical education في السودان is now in difficult circumstances. صح ممكن ندرس هنا ده أنا في مستشفى زي ما معاكم الحمد طبعا دي الناس المقاولين اللي قاعدين اللي هم they try to build the institutions بقدر الإمكان لكن لأنه في فصل ما بين التخصص والجامعة كده لما تمشي تبدأ واحد بس بيدرس تجي معي لكن عين الفرق لما تمشي تدرس في جامعة نيروبي مثلا أنت هناك بتعمل بروجرام ايفالويشن بتدرس مثلا ميديسن بتدرس الميديكال ستودنتس بتعمل البرانرز there's a lot of stuff you could do and احنا ما عندنا مقدرة نعمله لكن المفروض نحتاج نعمله لأنه هوفلي يكون في السيستم يعني بيخلي بيربط التخصص مع الجامعة زي ما في معظم الدنيا this is نيروبي دي هنا مثلا كومبريسنج أنا هنا دير الريزيدنتس في تنزانيا بدرسوا سلوزون هم قاعدين في الغرفة المرضية دخلوا بيشنت بتاعين أونكولوجي ورسولوا الصورة دي هم قاعدين هناك حتى قاعدين لهم قاعدين في السرير anyway you can do a lot. الأرياز المحتاجين اللي هي what it takes knowledge sharing translation and generation عندك الوحيدة بتاعت الكورنر بتاع program development implementation evaluation application اللي عندك teaching mentoring curriculum development instructional and strategy assessment عندك faculty development as cornerstone بعدين education scholarship وده اللي هو education scholarship المفروض إن research and education اللي احنا داخل نعملها. What kind of doctors are we producing? Are they functioning well? How do we improve teaching in Canada? Do they know about human rights? Do they know about health? At UOKANA, this is my last slide. We need to strengthen the University of Khartoum, invigorate the academic system, modernize the curriculum and research and education. We have a partnership مع الناس في السودان عشان to do these things. الحاجة الثانية we should support transition of postgraduate programs back to universities. أنا ما بقول إن الرجال جامعة خرطوم كلها ممكن مش يعني يكون في واحد في جامعة كثير واحد في جامعة خرطوم واحد أي جامعة حكومية ثانية. Contribute to the debate on social accountability, social determinants of health, social justice, equity, and universal health care. advocate for public funding and strengthen public ownership of academic institutions that train health professionals. الحاجة الثانية أهم حاجة political will, supporting the political will for change and reform. The last slide of photos. One photo is for the victims in atrocities. One أنا جايبة بتاعت health care 1983 عشان الناس ما يقول إنه النظام ده بدأ سنة 89. النظام ده بدأ للناس المساكين سنة 83. So please remember that. Okay? ده الناس القرآن المخلاق. الصورة الأخيرة على الفضل لما كان نحن كنا طلبة في الخطوبة هو كان كده بحضر هو تخرج من الزلازل لكن حضر public health في الخطوبة فكنا دايما بنشوفه وكنا الأكبر مننا وكده فما بيشوفوا البراء دايما بيكون جاي معاهم دول الناس الدين بيوديهم على الأطباء ويعملوهم يعني هو يستطيع بحضر بالpublic health و taking care of his local population. ناس ونسيلة. He's always advocating for them. So this is the model of a physician who, until the end, until he died, he has given a lot, and we will never be like him. Let's hope we'll achieve similar standards. Thank you.
For the very informative and eye-opener session. Our next session, our next guest speaker is Dr. Taha. Dr. Taha is a professor of epidemiology and population family for reproductive health and at Johns Hopkins. His speech title today is Challenge and Opportunity for Success in Healthcare Research in Sudan.
So what I will do is just to share with you some experiences. So it's slightly different from what we have heard so far, probably. This is more applied about what some of the work we have tried to get started in Sudan, and then what we have done actually successfully in other settings in Africa. So it is an experience for probably planning for what to come, and we will reflect on some of the challenges, a few comments about some suggestions, and then share experiences from a very successful program in Southern Africa, and then reflecting briefly on the situation of HIV/AIDS in Sudan. Unfortunately, the data doesn't come from Sudan, but at least you will have an idea about what's going on in the rest of Africa. So in I think it was 2003 or 2004, immediately after the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, the CPA, I personally sent a note to the National Institutes of Health, and this never happens. They actually gave me a small grant, and they told me, yes, you can start making some needs assessment. So with that resource, we were able to do a few things in Sudan, and I will tell you what happened after that. So this was, we were able to do some live conferences, workshops, and it involved mainly University of Khartoum and also the International University of Africa. And also we tried to include the universities from the south. The faculty attended, but due to several situations we couldn't go to the south. But at least we did several RAD activities, and it was very well attended. However, it stopped there. So what was the outcome of these attempts? This continued, I think, about 4 or 5 years, intermittently though. So extremely enthusiastic audience, so many highly trained young people who are eager to get involved. However, it was not a sustainable system. So that was the main disappointing part of it. So what are the challenges? And some of these, probably most of the people who are in this room will know what these challenges are. So people are just overwhelmed. Time constraints, and I can speak from my colleagues who are there, who will welcome you, as you know, that needs no explanation. But it is just overwhelmed to the extent that they are trying to survive. So that is one thing. And then this lack of exposure have made people completely domestic, meaning they probably don't know what is happening around them. So in the past, the way most of the departments, especially in the University of Khartoum and in the medical field, what has happened is that people used to receive training abroad. And then they bring that experience with them. And then there was a registrar system, and then people go there, and then they come back. So there was some continuity and greater exposure. But that is stopped a long time ago. And if you go there, you will just feel that people are dissociated from what is happening around them, be that knowledge, be that interaction. So you feel also this lack of respect for science, or so people are overwhelmed with so many things. And then there is this lack of interdisciplinary communication. Every department, every school, they just work on their own. People don't communicate. Neither departments, neither even clinical institutions or clinical departments within the same university, within the same hospital, say. And then the generational divide. Our young colleagues are very eager. They want to learn. They want to do so many things. And then you find another generation. So there is no link between these two. And their expectations and how they communicate is totally different. And then on top of all of this is lack of resources. I'm sure none of this is new to you, but these are real. I will say why this is important. And then I'm glad this morning there were people who know this area more than myself, is this issue of the external challenges. OFAC. OFAC is something real. This is the Office of Foreign Assets Control. If you are working here in the institution in the US, this is a big hurdle. I work with a big institution. Probably they are available, or they work in so many places, but whenever you say Sudan, there is something else. So you heard about OFAC today, and actually my personal question to them was very clear, is where can we find this information? Because you go to your administrator, then they will give you an information. If they don't see it in front of them, if it is not documented, for audit purposes, compliance, and so forth, they consider Sudan a high risk. In fact, so many African countries are high risk, but Sudan is a special case. So this OFAC barrier is going to remain with us. Even if it is removed, it will probably be few years until we see this being cleared from how Sudan is perceived. Okay, so these are some of the experiences. So what will be the way forward? So there is, where all of us will agree, there is intense desire by all parties. The level of expectations, and my colleagues who spoke before me, they said this is how to manage these expectations. I think this will be probably one of the most important things, is how to manage these expectations. We need to be realistic. This is going to be incremental. However, we need to find a way to make it sustainable. What ideas are we going with? Is it research? Is it service? Is it training, mentoring? I think we need to be also realistic in what we want to do. We will not be able, probably, we individually can do part of this. Collectively, we could do part of this. But we need to be clear which model we want to follow. And then where is the mechanism for the support? For us who work here in academic institutions in particular, we get our funding by writing grants. Is this the best model? I don't think in Sudan this is going to work. It is difficult, it is very competitive. No one will give you money for free. And even when you write a grant, And anyone can tell you here that probably if you are lucky, you get 1 out of 100, you will still be pleased. So we have to find a way of writing something big that is interdisciplinary, that probably we can find some other mechanism of support. The local impediments and barriers need to be overcome. The issue of time and effort commitment and responsiveness. I can tell you, I go to clinicians in many African countries actually, and I told them, I have this idea, can we do it? And the first thing they say is yes, and I say no, you can't do it because you have patients, you have students, you have other things to do. Why are you telling me that you will do it? So this is the same, I think this is the same approach in Sudan too, but that has to change. People have, they say yes, then they are going to commit effort, then they are going to be accountable. So that's why again, multitasking is not enough. The goodwill is very appreciated, but if they are going to commit effort, then they are going to be accountable for it. Then they have to live with timelines. This is required tomorrow, this is required after a month, deliverables. And you have heard about this from the previous presenters. And then this big issue of effective institutional goals. If we are going there with ideas, it has to be reviewed. Ad hoc reviews and approvals just under a tree, I don't think this is ethical. Neither acceptable, and it is not predictable. There have to be institutional boards that are formed appropriately, that has a predictable time when they review, when they issue approval. So these are really important. So every institute or every institution in Sudan should have these. Probably they should have more than one. And then this is it has to be realized that this is a long process. Multiple generations will be involved. Probably for many of us, we can get it started, but we might, it will be another generation that to take this forward. So I have this big idea of creating a diaspora house. If you know the Prime Minister, please talk to him. I think this is something really we have to fight for it. And the idea is that we have an in-country physical structure as a multiple discipline structure. And it is taken to the National Academies of Sciences, Medicine and Engineering, so that it is not only one discipline, but multiple disciplines accommodated in this diaspora house. Diaspora in Sudan is just something, what can I say? They only look for diaspora people for money, for the revenue. But this is different. This is for technical reasons. No one is using our skills. We have been kind of forgotten. When we show there, you are valuable as long as much money you can get. But this is different. This is for technical reasons. If there is a structure that can accommodate us all, and it doesn't make sense. For example, you go today, you start talking about this IRB issues and clearances and plans. But if there is a single place where many disciplines, multiple disciplines, can operate, and it is there are people, this diaspora house, in my vision, should belong to the office of the Prime Minister. It shouldn't belong to any institution, or any university, or any hospital. It should belong to the office of the Prime Minister. So that, and little by little, this will gain prominence. And I will tell you what is happening with our own research when we work in Africa. This will host all initiatives. It will promote collaboration with local scientists, and it will act as, these groups will act as a think tank to take or tackle big issues, things like the environment. And you will hear later about the epidemic of cancers that is is happening, demographic issues, nutritional security. So big ideas that you need more than one discipline. Okay, I will go quickly over this, and I wanted to tell you where we are with the rest of Africa, not with the rest of the world. So this is, if I can read this, this is a National Institute supporting different medical research in Africa. I just wanted you to notice where Sudan is. There are no dots there. All the resources, as you can see, is in different parts of Africa. Sudan is, I think even that dot you see in Sudan is probably left over from the time when Michigan State had a laboratory at Stack. So you can see the others will even be more clear. This is MEHP, the medical education, and you can see completely Sudan is absent. None of the initiatives is going on in Sudan. As far as publications, you can see where Sudan is. It is actually just on top of the country which I know most, which is Malawi. Malawi didn't have a medical school until 1997. So you can just see where we are. Okay, so if you didn't like that part, so I wanted to share with you something very successful. Not because I have been leading it, but this is a reality. If people commit to do something, we can. So we have the experience, we have the skills, and our gathering today just reflects that. We can do it because we have done it in other places. I'm not the only one, but I will just share with you what we have done. This is an example of very successful collaboration in Africa, and I have been managing it for 30 years in Malawi. So it is a research and training program that started in 1988, and it's still ongoing. So it is a partnership between Johns Hopkins University, the College of Medicine University of Malawi, and the Ministry of Health in Malawi. So this is the Republic of Malawi, a very small country. What we do there is research, training and mentoring, development of infrastructure, and provision of services. I wanted to touch briefly here about the situation of HIV/AIDS, because this is what we have been doing all these years. So the top panel you see there is HIV prevalence among women attending antenatal care in Southern Africa. If you just see the level of these curves, you will see that Southern Africa is very high, and in some countries it was up to 40%. For example, places like Francistown in Botswana, almost the country or that city was about to disappear. And you can see East Africa and then Central Africa. However, what is happening now, it is that it is declining because of the successful programs that these countries implemented. And where did they find the money? They received it from donors from here and from the Global Fund and others. So countries, when they committed themselves, they are now being very successful in preventing HIV/AIDS. This is from our own work in Malawi. You can see when we started the transmission from an HIV-infected mother to her child was about 30%. So a woman who is HIV-infected can transmit HIV to her child through breast milk, and the rate at that time was about 30%. This is in the early 1990s. Right now, you can just see all these studies we did. Right now, the last column you cannot see, it is about 0.5%. Today, we cannot find an HIV-infected child in our clinics. So you can just see from where, but this is an activity that has been done over 30 years. So continuity and being predictable in what you do, we can do that. So if we have done it there, I think we can do it in Sudan as well. Not necessarily in the area of HIV, but the point is something that is sustainable. What happened to HIV-infected children? I kept this slide with me since early 1990s. So if you take 1,000 HIV-infected children or not infected. Their mothers were infected. They were just breastfeeding their baby, just like any woman would do. What will happen if there is no treatment? Then, if after 3 years, if you come back, you will find that almost, just exclude about 1 or 2%, all of these children would have died. If they have not died, they will be severely sick. This is what happens to these children. So right now, with the work we have done and the resources they received from donors, now this has been eliminated. So you can just see the impact of doing good work for if it can be sustained. Okay, so this is our own project in Atlanta, Malawi, and this is we built this in Atlanta. This is completely dedicated for research. And actually, it is within the hospital. The hospital didn't take it over, or someone made a quarrel with you about it. So this exists, a 3-story building, purely for research, and we have been working from there. This is some of my colleagues, and we have about 250 people who are working with us now. And about 10% of them are highly trained clinicians. They work with the College of Medicine, University of Malawi. So all the principal investigators there now are nationals. They are Malawians. But we have trained them. Now they own this work. And they are the people who are now taking the responsibility for it and who want it to be done. So we can do something similar in Sudan. So with resources, you can invest and you can make it long term. So this is our lab, this is our pharmacy, our data entry, the clinic, and this is Lake Malawi. So I just wanted to leave you with this jacaranda and the pop-up tree. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taha, for this important long-term, or for sharing with us this long-term or strategic way of improving healthcare in Sudan. And I hope that you keep Sudan in mind for a long-term, maybe John Hopkins Sudan initiative as well. Our next speaker is Dr. Selma Mohamed. And Dr. Selma Mohamed is a professor of cancer biology at Purdue University. And her talk is The Cancer Epidemic in Sudan, How to Control.
I would like to thank UOKANA for inviting me, and especially my buddy Sakina for sending the invitation and insisting that I come. So thank you. So allow me, I'm gonna just get a little bit of the norm and tell you about who I am and what I do and why I'm here. So my name is Selma. I graduated a long time ago from Khartoum University, and then I did a master's degree at Cornell University. I went back to Sudan, and I worked as a lecturer at Jazeera University. Then I came back as a Mabrus at Jazeera to do my PhD at Purdue University with an Afghan fellowship. While I'm doing my PhD, the government changed, and I received a letter in the mail that I'm fired. Yeah. So, but there is no money. We struggled, finished my PhD. And then while we were waiting for the government, because we said the government never stay long like that in Sudan. So I did a postdoc, and then a postdoc, and then as a scientist. And then I became a faculty assistant professor, associate, and full professor. So جربت ولدنا الولادات قالوا ده يرجعوا السودان ما بيعرفوا السودان ولا هنا اتولدوا هنا وهم امريكان فبقينا لمينا هناك لمينا هنا. anyhow, to cut the story short, I'm here. So I'm going to tell you what so what I do in my lab. I focus on translational research, which is a research that between basic science research and between more applied research to the clinic or to the patient. I do biomarker discovery, and I will give you an example of what is that. So as you see that cervical cancer in America is almost no cervical cancer because they get rid of it because of the Pap smear. المشكلة في السودان إنه we cannot implement Pap smear for cervical cancer screening because we don't have the number of pathologists to do the screening. So they use acetic acid to look for this lesion. So in the lab, I said I wanted something more quicker, more advanced. So I looked at the cervical cancer and I discovered a protein that we can use and that can detect cancer in its early stages. So, and I collaborated with biomedical engineer at Purdue, and we wanted to make a test, like a strip test, like a pregnancy test, where a woman can just have it in her pocket and she can do her screening by herself. The other thing we do animal development, we do drug discovery. When a person has a drug or a medicine, you cannot just take it from the lab to the human. It has to go through a long process, and one of it is using an animal to test the route of testing, the dosing, and to do it first in cell culture, and then before we can do it in animal. The other project I do in my lab is immunotherapy, which is called CAR-T therapy, our chimeric antigen receptor, where we get the antigen from the cancer, and we get the blood from the person, and we take the white blood cells, isolate that white blood cells from the person, and we engineer them in the lab, and after that, we put them back into the human, and we are hoping that cells that has been engineered to attack that tumor. So my work ended in 88 publication that is being cited by more or read by more than 27 researchers. Also, I published 3 chapters, one of them with Dr. Abdelrahim. Just I don't know whether it's published yet or not, and I got funding from NIH and others. So in addition to my lab work, I do a lot of engagement work. And one of the work I did is we created or reactivated the African Organization for Cancer Research. This organization is Pan-African organization that deals with cancer in the whole Africa. And it's been initiated in '82, but because of the civil unrest and the internet and communication that at that time not available, so the organization died, and then we reactivated. The organization key objective is to further the research relating to cancer prevalent in Africa, support management of training program, and deal with challenges creating cancer control and raise public awareness in cancer in Africa. So my second engagement is in Sudan, and I'm going to tell you I've been working with Sudan for the last 20 years. That culminated in, Dr. Taha said there is no many publication from Sudan, but I have published about more than 20 papers in collaboration with the Sudanese, and hopefully that will show one day in your graph. So Sudan is actually facing a very big challenge on cancer, and we are seeing the cancer is increasing. And you can see like how the projected number of cancer is going to be. And this is just an estimate, has nothing to do with a real number or things. This is just somebody projected to me. That actually Dr. Kamal Hammad. So the cancer burden in Sudan, and as I said, the actual number we don't know because we don't have a surveillance and we don't have any registries. The cancer is increasing because of the increase in population, increase in life expectancy, increase in infectious diseases, tuberculosis, obesity, and physical inactivity, and changes in reproductive pattern. So we need really to tackle this epidemic, and we need to implement cancer control to take care of this issue. So as Nazik said, we need an evidence-based training. Also, we need an evidence-based cancer control program. And for the control of cancer, we need research. And I've been advocating for basic and translational research in Sudan for a long time. And why do we need research? We need research to examine the causes of cancer. We need research to know how to diagnose it, how to treat it. Because as you can see, the treatment and the vast majority of treatment, it happens into high-income countries. And it's not into, what we do is we take that medicine that is being discovered in the Caucasian white women, and we take that and we treat our African population, indigenous population. So now it's known that there is a differences between white women and African American women within the American population. So we really need to do, as I said, a pseudo-centric Sudan treatment or drug medicine. So that the evidence base will help into the cancer continuum. We will be able to know what is the prevalent cancer in Sudan, how many people it kills, and then we can prioritize, we can see which cancer to tackle first and which cancer to tackle next, and then to look at how we can prevent it, how we can detect it early. And by that, we can implement a comprehensive cancer program that will reduce incidence and mortality, reduce cancer mortality, and improve quality of life. And cancer is not a health disease only. It doesn't affect the health only. It affects the pocket too. People become bankrupt. People sell their houses. You know, if somebody that has a cancer in the family and they die, they leave the people behind them broke. And everybody now want to go. The medicine does not work. They want to go to Egypt. They want to go to Jordan. But actually, maybe the medicine is not a good fit for them. So, as I said, we need to focus into pseudo-centric to solve this problem. So we need to we need to train scientists. We need to train them first as leaders, so to be able to come with innovative solution to the cancer problem and to come with innovative intervention. We need to train them to become a trainer and evaluator. So they only to train, but they can evaluate their work. Infrastructure. We definitely need infrastructure. I want to go back to that point. I just came from Sudan from a conference that organized by Dr. Montasir, and is about young scientists. And I saw everybody has a poster, they give very nice talk, and there is many young scientists. And I asked them, how did you do the research? They said, okay, they focus on only one gene, and there is a PCR somewhere in Khartoum University, and everybody using that PCR. And I said, guys, do you know how to use a PCR? They say, no, we have a technician who does the work for us. That is how we train our scientists. It's mostly when I bring people in my lab, theoretically they're very smart, but they cannot do what my I have undergraduate students who come and train in my lab, they cannot do what these people do, but they're very smart, they know the science, but they cannot do the work. So we really need to train a scientist. So also we need the infrastructure and to do all this clinical and basic research and translational research, we need to do epidemiology. And as Dr. Taha said, we need a research administration that they have the oversight. They need to manage this grant. They need to help with managing this grant. So we know that you don't take money from the fund you got to pay for the taxi or something. Also, we need fund. We know that people in Sudan, they don't do research because they don't have the money. Okay, we don't have the data what we need. We don't have the vital science. We don't have surveillance for this cancer registry. We have only one cancer registry. I was so happy to see, and I went and I met the director, and I worked with how we published 2 papers, and we got that cancer registry going. But then suddenly she left to Saudi Arabia, and then they brought somebody who has no clue how to do, even to enter data into the computer. And then we need trained personnel. I'm gonna go be fast, Sakina. Don't look at me like that. So, and then we need collaboration. So collaboration is very important because you can, exchange knowledge. If you don't have something, in your lab, you can collaborate with something, that complement your experience. Community is very important. They can be an advocate, they can be part of the clinical research, and they can benefit from the research itself. So, when we talked about breast cancer and that woman who, took her breast out, I don't know what's the actor, that raised a lot of awareness about cancer, in breast cancer in America. What's her name? Angelina. Yep. So, and then we have to do, to teach people to do responsible conduct of research. But I want to tell you about some work that I did in Sudan. We don't need to have fancy stuff. We don't have to do many, like, you go, did you do this, did you do this? We don't have money, where do we get? We don't need to get really a bunch of money to do anything. So in this couple of slides, I'm just going to show you what I did minimally of research in Sudan, and this is published in very high impact journal of Lancet Oncology. So as you can see that breast cancer is high, is diagnosed when it is late stage, when people are really very sick and stage disease and already metastasized. So we need to be able to diagnose the disease early. If it is around here, the disease could be curable and women can survive for a longer time. But if it is here, women can die soon. So we just wanted to do a work that to be able to detect it early. So we did this work in Medani in collaboration with Jamaat al-Jazeera, in Abubuta and Pyramid County, and we looked at the villages in these counties. This is the people really very poor. They live very simple life. They have no idea about cancer or what to do with it this time. So we got younger women like less than 29 years old. We train them just to look at the woman's breast and see if there's anything that is not normal. You know, so we thought we got one woman from every village, and we trained her that. So that first of all, that girl we trained is from the same community. Women cannot hide from them. They don't feel shameful from them, so they can open to them and can talk to them, and they can let them, check their breast. So we trained them and we gave them certificate and we told them now you know how to do. And we went to the village and we get a big group in the mosque and in the school, and we told them, this woman gonna come and the cancer is not good for you and all that 9 yards. And then we gave them a paper for these women and we told them just to see if there's any abnormality to tell us in what breast and what kind of abnormality, and if that woman has any of these, refer her to the cancer center, and it's free. We're gonna look and diagnose her for free. So as you can see here, the number of villages in the county, and then the number of villages that we screened 32 villages in the Khartoum area and 0 in Abu Ghouta, and then the number of women that was being screened, and the number of the women in the village and how many we screened. So we achieved like about 70% success. And then we diagnosed 101 women are being referred to the cancer center. And we found 8 with an early breast cancer called BCIS, and then 9 has malignant lesion, and then 20 that been referred but they refused to come. So when we diagnose them and we find that women are having cancer, some refuse to take the treatment and immediately those women die. And women that with early they responded very well for treatment. In the Abu Ghouta patient, the 3 women who only came, they died from their cancer. So 3 women are treated and are alive up to date. 9 women with carcinoma in situ, and those are followed early. So, and we see that when we publish this work, we see that some people they did it in Malawi too. They did the same study, and then we have also people from Khartoum University did the same. And I will stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Salma, for the sharing your research in Sudan with us, and it seems there is potential. It's truly, even though I'm happy for people who came here to further their career, it's too sad to know that Sudan lost so many pioneers that they could put us way ahead of the game by now. So, okay, then a couple go. Next is Dr. Sakina Zubair, who is a professor at MEHP Medical College.
So, who have heard of exposome? Exposome. That's what I guess. So you can learn about it today in 5 minutes. So the exposome is a concept that after the human genome was discovered, everybody knew about the genome, and but a little bit was not known about what else, what other than the gene determining us, our health or anything else. So, according to the American Cancer Society, the American Cancer Society, only 15% of our diseases can be related to our heritage, can be related to our familial inheritance. So that means about 85% to something else, and that is our exposures. So the exposome is defined as the concept refers to the total environmental exposures from conception onwards. And it's a novel approach to study the whole environment or the gene environment interaction. So why is it from conception? Because within the mother, anything the mother is exposed to, the genome is, the fetus is exposed to. So that's when you start your exposure to whatever is in your environment. So the environmental factors that we are exposed to include the person who came with the concept in 2005 is Chris White, who is the director of the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is a subsidiary of the WHO that deals with the study of cancer and its prevention. So the three components that determine our exposures include these three circles. So the general external one that include the social capital, education, your financial status, your psychological and mental stress, urban, rural environment, the climate, and etc. And actually, Nazik helped me because the paper that was published in the Lancet, it was published during the time that we were worried about what was going on in Sudan. And the paper basically showed that people who are in a democratic country, they suffer less of diseases than the people who live in autocratic countries. And it was a very legit study that was published in Lancet. And for those who don't know the Lancet is the epic of the journal that you can publish in your medical research. So hopefully we're going to get less diseases in Sudan, and we're all going to do nothing because everybody's going to be healthy. So in addition to these general external exposures, internal exposure include our metabolism. We take sugar, we take protein. So all these, our bodies will produce something from it. That is an exposure. Also our gut microflora, the inflammation, anything that will cause inflammation through your lung or your skin, that's also an exposure. Your oxidative stress, factors, aging. We're all exposed to aging, so that's another exposure. Specific external exposure, and this is what most people understand when we say exposure. We think it's chemicals, radiation, but it's only one portion of it. So these include environmental pollutant, lifestyle factor, tobacco control, some of the social determinants. People who are under stress, I study a lot the health disparity in African American people. So lots of the diseases, they have high incidence of, they are the first in every single disease that you know of. The reason is they are under lots of stress, including starting with the slavery. So these social determinants is very well established reason for causing new lots of diseases. So characterizing the exposures, the exposome represent the combined exposures from all sources that reach the internal chemical environment. So in this diagram, you have on the top radiation again, the stress, all the factors that I mentioned in the previous slide. So on the square on the right top is that, so how do you know that you're exposed to anything? So you have to have a central pool where you can take something to measure to know that you're exposed. And actually, you could be exposed but with no net results. You don't have something to show. So there is a big area of studies that determine markers that would show exactly what you're exposed to. So that's another part of the exposome system. So I told you that your exposure starts at your from conception. So in this diagram, so the fetus, you're growing, and you have that's an intense. So when you see the red arrow, that is when we call this a critical period that determines. So your exposure at this certain period of your life is more dangerous than your exposure at other places. So for example, my area of study is breast cancer. So in breast cancer, exposure of girls while their mothers to certain chemicals can put them at higher risk of developing breast cancer later on in their life. Also, if they are exposed at puberty, so that's another put them at higher risk. So what's involved? What are the tools that we use for assessment of exposome? So in the first compartment, there are these questionnaires that are administered, the residential, occupational, about smoking history and drinking alcohol. A very important component is the GIS, and that determines when they develop the exposome. This is actually one of the major highlights, because they use type of study that is not normally associated with these type of studies. But basically, the GIS can give you marks of where certain chemicals are found. Not only chemicals, but all incidence, prevalence of diseases. Depending on these maps, you can determine where you can do your studies and where you can focus on targeting certain exposures. So the GIS is an important component of the exposome. So here is the type of exposure that you can detect for, and then you have mobile devices. This is very, now in the US, to determine how much you're exposed to. You can have all these electronic devices that you wear on different parts of your body, and then after every period you collect, they send them for testing, and then they determine what you are exposed to. So in addition to that, I told you earlier about the biomarkers. So we look for biomarkers in urine, samples from blood, from your breast, and we give you some device that you can breathe in, and we go and detect for different biomarkers, whether they're chemicals or actually biologicals. The other important part is, so I'm exposed to something, but Mohamed exposed to the same thing. I develop a disease, he doesn't. So that was found is due to not, even if we're twin, the exposure, because his epigenetic, we call it epigenetic, can affect. We can give different signatures for the same exposure. So that the study of epigenetic is a very important aspect of the exposome. So this exposure doesn't change your genes, but it would change your epigenetic. So the study of epigenetics, transcriptomics, proteomics, and metabolomics, Government, so for example, if you, what's the example? So if you have something, and then because you're diabetic, you give a different, so these are the metabolomics. So this is what we measure. So why Sudan? Why is the exposome important for Sudan? So just a disclaimer that the African countries are required to accept donation of pesticides as part of aid packages that may include highly valued commodities such as tractors. The EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency in the US, estimated that some 7,000 tons of surplus pesticide have accumulated in Africa. More than 50,000 tons of banned, contaminated, or expired pesticide in Africa. This is called the African Stockpiles Program. Morocco is more than 200 tons. Sudan, more than 1,000 tons. This poison, you know, it's just not only cancers, asthma, all kinds of diseases, cardiovascular, diabetes, they're all from these exposures. So the African Stockpile Program is an independent initiative that's funded by the World Bank and secured about 50 million to do the cleaning. The Stockpile Program aims to destroy all the chemicals by 2020. The first phase of this cleanup was done in Ethiopia, Mali, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, and Tunisia. Sudan was not one of the first cohort. The reason being, to qualify for this, you have to have signed or ratified the Stockholm Convention of 2001. Basically, what this agreement tells that you can't have to get rid of the certain type of chemicals, which I'm showing in the next. It's called the POPs. And Sudan did not sign this agreement until 2006. So basically, they missed the window to be part of the cohort. In 2006, they signed it, and this is a governmental document that I obtained, where they show their the implementation plan that they. So what is the plan for Sudan? I think forming multidisciplinary work groups formed from toxicologists, chemicals, public health practitioners, epidemiologists, molecular biologists, and GIS engineers. And then the potential for the exposome, the second tier is training. We can train big number of our young people at the undergrad level, PhD or postdoc in this area of research. And if we execute it correctly, I would put everybody else who talked before me out of business, because nobody will be sick anymore, because we control the exposome and exposure. And I think that's all what I have. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sakina, for a very important, definitely very important topic that unfortunately was addressed in rush moment. So we are question time. Our next speaker is Dr. Abbas Ali, and who is the co-founder of UOKANA and chair for UOKANA. And his talk is about accelerating the end of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria as epidemics.
Very brief, and actually I will talk about tuberculosis. And I chose this topic just to show the recklessness and irresponsibility of the previous fortunately thrown government. In 2000, there is, came out the Millennium Development Goals, and one of those goals, 3 of them are related to health, which is 4, 5, and 6. Goal number 6 is the elimination of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And then at that time, they said world free of tuberculosis by 2050. And by 2015, they should cut the incidence of TB to 50%. I was involved in just volunteers, like doing a family organization to get rid of tuberculosis. And actually, we have an abstract outside. You can see what we have done. So there was nothing done in tuberculosis. Actually, it was negative. They were destroying everything to get rid of tuberculosis. So we established, and now the goal is to have to end tuberculosis by 2030. 10 years from now, the plan of the world is to be free of tuberculosis, and nothing has been done in Sudan, and actually they don't allow people to do anything. So as I mentioned, it is goals number 4 and 5, 6, reduce child mortality, improve mental health, combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, and really there are 3 programs which are very helpful, helping babies breathe. I hope one of our medical associations will take that to Sudan. Maha, which is helping mother survive, which combat antepartum hemorrhage, which is taken by SAPA to Sudan. And we work as our family organization on TB in the Red Sea state, and now moving to Nile state, and hopefully it will spread all over Sudan. So stop tuberculosis is very familiar. And why tuberculosis? Because it is just tuberculosis doesn't need a visa to come here, and it doesn't need permission to infect you. So it should be justice to every one of us if we spend anything on tuberculosis. And actually, when we talk about economy today, actually treating tuberculosis is the best investment. If you spend $1 on tuberculosis, it pays back like $30 in the economy. And now even you don't need to spend anything because the medicines are free. And there's very dangerous thing going on, which is called MDR, which is multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So because patients with tuberculosis, after 2 months they feel very well, and then they stop the treatment. And then they use it like intermittently and they develop resistance. So that patient will have tuberculosis, and it may infect any one of you, and there is no treatment. Treatment is so difficult. And actually it's very expensive. To treat one case of MDR, it costs like $4,000, and with science now, it is $4,000. Now hopefully it will be $1,000, but success is not 100%. So this is the goals. So we use the technology now because X-rays are digitalized. You no longer need a film, X-ray films. And there is a system which by sputum you diagnose tuberculosis very fast, in 2 hours. You don't need to do that cumbersome staining and LED or some sort of microscopy. So what we did, we purchased 2 portable X-ray machines, and actually machine you can take it in your car and walk with some digitalizer. So digitalizer, when you have the digitalizer machine, expensive, but to cut cost, we have regular machines and then digitalizers and DICOM, and we spend about €50,000 to have these 2 machines. We have very great difficulty in registrations. The organization in Khartoum, we failed, and all the security checks and all these things. So we went to Red Sea State. Fortunately, we were able to do that. And so our clinic, mobile clinic, is like an X-ray technician coming from the government and lab technician. And we have a modified vehicle. You see it here in the picture, where we have all the equipment in the car, and we went in the rural areas in the Red Sea State and go to patients and their families. So, and this is very small. You can see the X-ray machine here. This is the X-ray machine. You can fold it and just put it in the car. Even you don't need a big truck. And it's a very heavy duty machine. Patients, they come to the clinic. So we have a tour all up in the all districts in Dordel, Gadamayet, Tirawi, Fagek, all of them. So we examined in that tour like 364 patients. We did lab studies on 111 and X-ray 73 patients. So this is, as I mentioned, because of the telemedicine, this X-ray is taken there and they send it to me through the internet. I just interpret it for them over my cell phone and quickly give them the report back. Okay, so our new goals is to reach out to the patients, and we do what is called DOT, direct observed therapy, and we would like to screen volunteers, especially with the young Ahya now. Hopefully we can train them, and because they are very motivated, and that is a very effective way. Earlier we talked about resources, economy, and all these things. But if we use the resources and the young Ahya and Shabab, they can help actually in controlling tuberculosis. Even they can help in getting rid of malaria. And say we talk about malaria, which is the most dangerous medicine, which is the most dangerous disease for us. Now here, as expatriate, we lost that immunity. So God forbid malaria can kill us or our children within 24 hours. So I have to be very careful. If you have any dollar, please spend it on malaria to get rid of it. And there is World Fund, and as Professor Taha talked about, Sudan was denied this because of just rudeness about government. We were excluded from the international community. We denied any sort of support. Hopefully now help will trickle in, but really it depends on us. We have to help ourselves before asking other people to help us. And I think the resources are there. We need to be prioritized. We need to put a priority. All right, and these are the goals. If you think here, 2020, 25, 2030, 2035. You have to cut the mortality 2030, 90% reduction, and in the deaths and incidence 80% reduction, and zero cost or death or infection with tuberculosis 10 years from now. And in Sudan, nothing done. Actually, as the economist Dr. Hiba mentioned, we are in negative development. Everything is destroyed. I went to Accra to visit in January to visit the tuberculosis unit. Usually I visit these places. I talked to them, I found them, they are very enthusiastic to work with me, but they are so depressed, and I asked them, what is your car? It's a car, it's a box, right? The small car. They said the government took our car. Why they took it? Because they want to rent it and to have money out of it. The government should spend money on tuberculosis, not take the car of the tuberculosis unit and go and just take care of their families and use it for transport. That's a very serious disease, and actually by throwing this, even without having government, will be better. Like that government, by don't having the in-house, we are much better, because we can help ourselves and we can work together. And actually, this is one of the reasons why in 2014 we thought about forming UOKANA like a forward thinking. Everyone knows, or we knew at that time, this government will collapse. But we need to have a civil organization, civil society organization to take care of each other. And actually, this is what happened. Over the last 6 months, hopefully we are taking care of each other. Organization, UOKANA, SAMA, SAPA, Salakat, Nafir, and Mujabidun, all these people, they come to the community together. And hopefully we have work together even more. And hopefully to compensate in these coming years what we have lost in 30 years. And I will stop here, but I will tell you the 3 most important barriers for elimination of tuberculosis. Number 1, lack of political will. Number 2, lack of political will, and I will leave number 3 for you.
Thank you, Dr. Abbas, for the nice talk. Actually, you just proved to me that if there is a will, there is a way. With the current state of micro, nano, portable, low-cost machines, it seems we can do a lot in a country like Sudan that's struggling for infrastructure. Our next guest speaker, who is also a co-founder with a very long history of leadership roles. It's just I don't have time to read all of it. He's at faculty at University of Michigan State University, and a co-founder of UOKANA. And his speech is about malaria.
So let's wake up in the last 5 minutes of my talk. I want to start, 70 years ago, when we had the cognitive revolution, when Homo sapiens became, they are the dominant species, you see, on Earth. And that's when we got rid of Neanderthals and all the others. And then 12,000 years ago, when we had the agricultural kind of revolution, where human beings were making cities and they were staying on the banks of Niles and water and so on, and that they could make food that they could eat. They don't need to be hunters and gatherers running around. 500 years ago only, when we have the scientific revolution. And scientific revolution is what we all now talking about, Dr. Abdelrahim, Dr. Taha, Dr. Abbas, is that we have to have a scientific approach to treating disease and a scientific approach in how to have a civil society, which we have been lacking. And unfortunately, it's 500 years of scientific revolution. I think Sudan, we didn't have that scientific revolution. We have a Mahdi revolution. It wasn't a scientific revolution, but it was a political revolution. We have our revolutions which are happening now. This one, we think that is going to be a scientific revolution because now we are talking in a scientific way how we are going to approach our problem and how to solve them. And that, I think, is the biggest kind of change that we have in this revolution, is that we have young people, we have professionals talking, you see, about solutions. Nobody's coming, you see, to say that, you see, we have malaria because it's no longer, it's a scientific way that we have to approach these kinds of problems. Malaria in Sudan, and I think that anybody who lived in Sudan has malaria at some time. The scope or impact of malaria, one of the things in 1948, United Nations says that the medical care is a human right. It is, which since 1948, where we are supposed to help low-income countries so that they combat problems like malaria, tuberculosis, and AIDS, and so on. And one of them is a global fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Malaria has claimed about 1.4 million lives in Sudan by 2017, in 1 year. So it's a big problem. So the incidence has been about 9 million. I think everybody who lived in Sudan has malaria sometime. Is there anybody who lived in Sudan that didn't have malaria? Oh, here. Khalid is the only one who didn't have malaria. So we have to test Khalid and come and see what's going on with him. So we have also, unfortunately, the malaria which we have in Sudan is a falciparum malaria, which is the worst kind of malaria. I mean, there are others, Vivax, Ogali, malaria, and so on. And those malarias are not as dangerous as the malaria which we have in Sudan. 90% of the malaria is falciparum, and it was the one which has the highest mortality, morbidity, and neurological sequelae in the target investment. When we look at the GDP of different countries, we'll find that GDP is related to health and life expectancy in general. So the unfortunate malaria lives above 64 degrees Fahrenheit, lives in areas where there is water, so that while sub-Saharan area and South Asia, they have the highest mortality and they have the highest incidence of malaria in the world. So our geography and our environment really, helps malaria to be prevalent in there. So the highest population, the highest risk is in the kids who are less than 5 years of age. The world malaria, as we said before, 2.5 million infected in Sudan, 1.4 in South Sudan, and 2.7 in 0.07 in South Sudan, and 1.48 million in Sudan. In 2017, 1.4 people were reported to have died of malaria in Sudan. Regionally, Sudan had the largest share of estimated malaria cases using the most recent statistics, which more than 36%. So, and unfortunately, as Abbas said, that we have an increase now in incidence of malaria instead of having it to be less. So, one of the things which the world has done is that they dedicated 0.1% of the GDP from the developed countries, which about 40 billion. It's a very small amount of money from billion people. If you take $40 from billion people who are in the developed country, that will give you 40 billion, and that's the amount of money which we need to combat AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. So it is not really a big problem if the world come together, and if Sudan become a country, a peaceful country, which will be accepting this kind of money, which we are being now out of the problem. And as we said, that malaria, infection, malnutrition, this is a vicious cycle which will lead to poverty, and poverty lead to more disease, so we have to break that cycle. All we need is $60 to $90 per capita per year to fight those kinds of diseases. To do that, we have, as we're looking at the GDP, as the GDP goes up, which is the national product of any country, as it goes up, we'll see that disease will be less. But up to 20,000 per capita, after that, it will be flattened. So we have an opportunity that if we have a targeted kind of scientific way to use the money which is given to us, which we think that the 40 billion which will be distributed to low income, that opportunity by just teaching the community health workers. We are not talking about doctors, we are not talking about nurses or any of that stuff, just community health workers whom we are going to teach about how to give people just nets which they could use at night when they are sleeping so that there will be no mosquitoes to bite them. There is decreased about 30% in incidence of malaria just if we use the nets. If we disturb the habitat of the mosquito, which is the Anopheles mosquito, in there, that will decrease it by 30%. And then if we use the medication which are available now, because we have multi-drug resistant malaria now as we have multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So the value of prevention, as we said, outweighs the treatment. And public health is the way to go, and that by using the amount of money, the little money, if we reach 60 to 90, so if there is any government has to look to raise $60 to $90 per person, then we could combat malaria, AIDS, tuberculosis. It's not a lot of money, and I think that we could do it. And Madaniya, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sayyid Asad, for the way you ended this talk, because that's where I want to start my questions. So I want to open the door for discussions, and our guest speakers are spread in, all over the place instead of being in their seats. But since this is the last session now, I've opened the discussion for all. I have two questions, quick questions. And since I'm the moderator, I'll take it. I'll give myself the first chance. First of all, we know that Canada and England, they have a social system. High tax, everybody get free education maybe, and free healthcare. So this touches on Nazik and Dr. Sayyid Asad on budgeting and all that, how to pay for all this. Number two, the US is high tax, but it's a privatized system. Going back to education, private schools, top research institutions in the US are private, starting by Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, and you name it. These are private institutions that lead research in the US, not the public school system. And the students are equal in taking loans or scholarships. So why Sudan would not adopt a private, why would not encourage privatization as well, and equal fair opportunity for education? Number two, in Sudan, in the US we have private hospitals, HMOs, you name it, Mayo Clinic, these are all Kaiser Permanente, these are all private healthcare systems. Private health insurance system. In Sudan, privatization seems to be better than public system where you have Royal Care or Imperial Care, something like that. One of those hospitals is private and proved to work in Sudan, but it's costly. What do you guys think about privatization in Sudan? Number one. Number two, what do you think of reforming the healthcare by private health insurance system? Obamacare, for example. Anybody has to pay, even if it's $1, but everybody get to be treated at the same time. U.S. healthcare is $3.5 billion expenditure. This is the national healthcare expenditure. Medicare, 700, that's trillion, 3.5 trillion. Medicare, 700 billion. Medicaid, 500 billion. Where are we going to get this money in Sudan? We cannot afford free education nor free healthcare for everyone. So what do you guys think?
I'll start because it's about education. So first of all, the US, yes, there are very good public institutions like Harvard, and I have to say, but we have to remember that the pressure is usually from the state universities, which are publicly funded. These are very strong institutions, and therefore private medical institutions also have to follow the same, because there's governance, there's regulatory rules which since Flexner's time. So it will take, if you have Khartoum مثلا بيقل جامعة ضعيفة, public university بتاعتك بيقل ضعيفة, حتكون very difficult for you انك انت تعمل accountability في private schools. عشان كده بقى يعني الطريقة ذات اللي بتبيع private schools في السودان بدأت بتكسير public institutions, which is opposite way that happened in the US. يعني هناك لازم يكون عندك strong public institutions عشان بعد ذاك تقوم شنو تبني عليها الستاندرز اللي حتجي فيه private institution. عشان كده مثلا لما تلقى وين ستيت يونيفرسيتي جنبها University of Michigan, تلقى وين ستيت يونيفرسيتي is a state university بتدي له السوشيال accountability بتاعتها اعلى من University of Michigan. بيدعي عليه الانر سيتي patients بيدخل كميه ضخمه من الستودنتس اللي هم بيمشوا بعد حتى لما ينتزلوا فورين جرادويتس هم بيمشوا الانر سيتي الرورال ارياز وورلد وايد. عشان كده ممكن يعني انا ما قلت انه نحن نقول انها برايفت education, لكن لازم to strengthen public education بالاول حتى بعد ذاك تكون في يعني strict oversight لاي private institution تجي مو بالطريقه اللي بدات السودان تكسر الببليك institution عشان تبني private institution. دي بالنسبه للمساله بتاعت الاديوكيشن. المساله الثانيه بتاعت اليونيفرسال خاص كفرج. اليونيفرسال خاص كفرج دي جديده التارجت اصيل 8C في sustainable development goal. And it's very bad for us in نقول نعين US. And US has the most expensive healthcare system. يعني the amount they spend دايما الحته اللي بيكون يعني فيها very good healthcare. لكن شنو حتى انت عشان تيجي تاخذ الملكات مرات لازم يعني to spend all you have. و it's a rich country. عشان كده هم بيقدروا يغطوا لما يكون ما في universal health coverage, لكن it's extremely expensive. وعشان كده حتى جاء منا الأوباما كير وحصل عن لهم رول اوت اللي هي كانت خطوة كويسة. فشنو احنا we should look at countries like Canada, the Scandinavian countries اللي هو they spend actually less. حتى لما تعاني الاوتكم بتاع الكون كانسر والحاجات دي في الحتات اللي فيها يونيفرسال اللي هو اليونيفرسال هيلث كفرج بالعربي اسمه التغطيه الشامله مش كده؟ غير كده ان احنا بدل نقول البرايفت يعني حاجه مخك يعني I'm very happy انه رويال كير يعني ساهم في الناس الثوره وفي الناس لكن دي ذاتها مش وريك انه نحن في حته يعني بلد في مرحله حرجه انه الديمونستريشنز والحياه يعني بيكون في بابليك هيلث كرايسيس. ما هي كانت هيلث كرايسيس مش لما بيقولوا تسلوتر الناس ويقولوا كده يكون الحته اللي بيدعمها فيها الناس برايفت انستتيوشن دي ذاتها مساله يعني محرج. It's bad انه يكون في حاجه زي مستشفى خرطوم التعليمي الحوادث حقت الاطفال كسروها بتاعت الناس اللي بيبنوا فيها يعني it's a shame انه ذاته البرايفت انستتيوشن يبقى البرايفت اللي هو ماسك اي حاجه. ف we have to realize انه يعني احنا بالنسبه للفقر عندنا عالي جدا جدا. بعدين غير كده يعني صح احنا ما عندنا قروش لكن هذه القروش اللي بتصرفت في الامن وفي القروش اللي سرقوها والقروش اللي مشوا على البال وفي تركيا وفي انجلترا يعني دي كانت حتعمل لنا ابسط ما كان فيها مثلا عسكري لكن يعني الناس ممكن يقدمون حبه خدمات كده حتى يقدموا لك يعتبر. الحاجه الاخيره انه ان احنا نمشي قدام enact نجيب universal health coverage بنلقى انه جيراننا ما احنا ماشيين بنزيد في البرايفت يعني hospitals we rely on it more. ففي ناس will be left behind ولا حيمشوا المستشفى لكن ما عندهم قروش. لكن تعال تقدر مثلا كينيا is now بعد الديمقراطيه بتاعتهم تكبر طبعا في الاول. نحن is a good example. كان في عنف وكانت في مشاكل لكن هسه الديمقراطيه بتاعتهم ابتدت شويه ترسخ. عشان كده السودان بيقولوا middle income country ما بيقولوا low income country anymore. What I'm going to say is they started a universal health coverage system about 3 or 4 years ago. وعنده مشاكل it's not perfect لكن it's a step forward. عشان كده you build a strong public institution عشان حتى لما تعمل private institution يكون عندك على governance ويكون الستاندرز جايه من public institution. So you cannot go the other way. وهارفارد دي لو من الستيت universities والله they will just care about the rich kids بس. لكن لأنه نحن عاملين ضغط عليهم ناس وين ستيت وناس بين ستيت وناس ميشيغان ستيت. This is one of the main reasons إنه يعني هم they try to be socially accountable. لكن at the end of the day it's usually the public institution that carry the weight forward. I'm very passionate about this.
The other thing I think there is Abuja recommendation that any country has to have 15% of its GDP to go to health. And that has to do with endemic diseases and has to do with that $60 to $90 per capita which is in there. And the people who has the endemic diseases are the poorest of all the people you see within the country. So those people that cannot to have private health, they are not going to use it. So we have to have those two things, that philanthropic and international funding, and also to have 15% of the GDP to go towards health on those. Thank you.
مساء الخير. والله يا جماعة السيشن is very rich يعني it is really الواحد سوري لأنه في ناس مسجد وبنفس الوقت برضه هو جات في الوقت ده يعني. أنا والله امبرست كلها لكن الجزء بتاع عباس وسيف الأسد ده يعني ناس في حتة زي دي ويكونوا مهتمين بالإنسان الضعيف والفقير في بلدنا. مسألة التي بي ومسألة الملاريا is great يعني الفكرة in itself لأنه يعني الكانسر والأشياء الثانية كلها أشياء صعبة ونتمنى يكون في الريسورس لأنه يعني لكن كل الناس يتكلموا عن الموضوع ده وأنه دوبل وممكن يتحل ولقطاعات كبيرة ولناس ما عندهم بدافع عليهم كثير. والله appreciate this. I really يعني think إنه السودان ده بلد خير فعلا وبلد يعني إن شاء الله الأشياء تمشي أشياء كويسة. فشكرا لكم ناس الصحة يعني والله it's a great session. ما عندي أي سؤال. شكرا جزيلا.
مساء الخير للجميع وتحياتي لكم كلكم خريجي جامعة الخرطوم وأصدقاء خريجي جامعة الخرطوم. تحياتي للشهداء. أنا رجاء بشير الحقيقة يعني الشكر لكل مؤسسي يوكانا والمبرمجين لهذا المؤتمر الراقي. سيشنز كانت راقية جدا مفيدة. الإديوكيشن لما كنا صغار كانت في حملات بتاعت أويرنس في الغرة. أنا بنت الغرة، أنا من الجزيرة. كانت بتيجي العربية وفيها شاشة بتاعت سينما وكلنا بنجري وراها وبنتفرج وبنتذكر تماما إنه الأويرنس كان كيف بصور والبعوضة والتطعيم عن التي بي وحاجات كثيرة يعني في الأويرنس المجتمع. يعني المسألة طبعا اختفت فترة طويلة جدا. الكلام كان عن الملاريا والتي بي وكل الأمراض الخطيرة الحاصلة واللي هي يعني أنا في الجزيرة حقيقة قاعدة أشوف كيسز مزعجة جدا وبالذات في التدهور الأخير للوضع الصحي. الشفخانات اختفت تماما. المراكز الصحية تقريبا فاقدة حتى الفيرست ايدز. فكل الدسكشن اللي اتقال ده جميل جدا ممتاز، لكن الفولو اب هل حيكون في اي تنسيق للجان عشان تتابع اننا كيف تكون المعالجه لكل هذه الامراض الفتاكه، واذا كان عن طريق يوكانا ساما سابا صدقات او نفير او عن طريق وزاره الصحه في عهدنا الجديد، هل في تخطيط لوضع زي ده؟ الحاجة الثانية اللي كنت عايزة أسأل عنها إنه إحنا في حاجات مهمة جدا المفروض كان برضه نتطرق لها. عندنا في الجزيرة وفي الغرة واللي هي يعني إذا كان تم إعادة تأهيل لمشروع الجزيرة، القرى والمناطق مناطق الإنتاج وربطها بمناطق التسويق في مشكلة كبيرة جدا. الحوادث اللي قاعد تحصل يعني احنا بنتكلم عن الامراض والفتاك والبتفتل، لكن في حوادث بتاعت سيارات في طرق غير معبده في الغرة. لما نبو 20 يكون مكسور حتى في العهد ما في امطار العربيه بتطلع بالسكيت بتاع الترعه وبتقوم تنقلب وبيموتوا 4 ولا 5 وبيتجرحوا العين. ففي بعض الاشياء برضه انا عايزه اشوف لو كان عندكم تصور لها او عندكم يعني بلان لمساله زي دي اذا تم اعاده تاهيل مشروع الجزيره هوفلي وربط هذه المناطق بشوارع معبده وحل مشكله الحوادث اللي تحصل في الخريف او غير الخريف. شكرا.
بس أنا عايزة من النقطة الأخيرة بتاعت الحوادث، هو طبعاً أكيد طرق مهمة جداً يعني ما في 2 3، لكن يوكانا كان السنة اللي فاتت مشينا عملنا كورس اسمه رورال تروما تيم ديفلوبمنت كورس. هو الكورس ده أمريكي، هنا في أمريكا عندهم بيسموه الرورال تروما is the forgotten epidemic of the 21st century. هنا ما في الارياز رورال في أمريكا بتحصل الأكسيدنتس وبيكون ما في جود كير. فنحن كان مسؤولية الثورة أخذتنا، لكن واحد من برامجنا ترين لأنه في الناس ماشي بطريق فاشل، طريق محمد، طريق المناري بتحدث حوادث في الطرق، وحوادث دي ما في ميديكال كير. لكن هنا عندهم حاجة اسمها RTPDC بترين just a lay people how to take care of the emergency, how to prevent mortality والموجودين بعد ما يحصل الحادث. تتذكروا ايام الثوره كل الناس بتشوف الاشياء لما ينضرب شايلينه من فور ليمس، يعني ده معناته لو عنده سرباك عندنا خلاص يعني فيه الواحدين بيشوفون الايف ديل كل الناس بيموت يعني لو في بيزك تريننج ABC ما بيموت. يعني عندنا قاعده الزول بيجي يسال المستشفى سبيكينج توكينج في جامعات ده المستشفى ده مهدد to lose اللايسنس بتاعه. بكل اسف كان في مهندس شاب صغير في صدقات وحصل له حادث وكان السايق يتونس معي قال لي جاء المستشفى تتكلم وانا صدمت لما كان جاء المستشفى وكان حصلت له حاجه فيرسم ABC عشان كده كنا مشينا عملنا الكورس ده. لكن يو رايت الانفراستراكشر هي مهمه. لما نرجع ثاني للسؤال بتاع الريكومنديشن بتاعك على privatization or public sector, I think it should be a mix. لأن الناس زي ما قالت نازك they are very poor. يعني what kills you is poverty, rare diseases in children, والملاريا والtuberculosis. If you have a clean water, you get rid of a lot of diseases. No cholera, no typhoid, no diarrheal diseases. سيف لو معاهم مجموعة من دفعاتنا عندنا بير في غرب الكردفان والحمد لله تمت واليوم دي خلاص البير انتهت. This is the best service to be given. No more cholera, no more typhoid, no more dysentery. All these diseases you just cancel them by have a water resource. If you teach your children and the mother to wash their hands, again you'll cut a lot of life. So a lot of morbidity and mortality in Sudan can be taken care of just with education with simple investment.
طيب بعلق بس على النقطة الأولى وبعد ذلك بتاع الانفراستراكشر بتاعت المراكز وكده. النظام الصحي أصلا هو جزء من الفلسفة بتاعت الدولة. لو ملاحظين هنا في أمريكا الناس بيتكلموا عن economy. The main drive بتاع كل الأكتيفيتيز في الدولة هي economy. يبقى البزنس هو the main drive. عكسه تماما ممكن تشوف في كندا في يوروب. People talk about society, and the more people talk about society, most probably the more community will be equitable. Inequality هي الإشكال الأساسي في ممكن يكون مهدد كبير للصحة ولغير السوشيال development indicators. وفي في دراسة جديدة طلعت عن الرول of equality في كل الindicators السوشيال والهيلث والإديوكيشن وكلها سيئة في المجتمعات اللي فيها هاي inequality ومقاسة بس بالايكونوميك inequality ما بقية الحاجات. فالسوداني إذا هو عايز يتجه على حرية سلام وعدالة، العدالة هي الشيء الأساسي الموتيف الأساسي، يبقى هو بيمشي ده تبقى البوليسي العام تحت النظام الصحي إنه يكون equitable accessible وأي زول يقدر يحقق. بتودينا طوالي للسؤال بتاع أستاذ رجاء اللي هو universal health coverage. وزارة الصحة متبنية اليونيفرسال هيلث كفرج جول مع WHO وبراند هيلث كير دايركتوريت التخطيط كان الإدارة العامة للتخطيط شغالين على بيزك باكيج متناسب مع السودان اللي هي تكون تحقق اليونيفرسال هيلث كفرج. الإشكال الكبير في إنه يعني إحنا بنتكلم بس عن مركز صحي أو شفاخانة أو كده، لأن الموضوع لو ذكرنا هنا الهيلث سيستم كومبوننتس كلها. في بعض أنحاء السودان مثلا المركز موجود، الأجهزة موجودة، الكادر ما موجود، أو ما يستخدم، أو السبلاي بتنقطع، لأنه في النهاية أنا اشتغلت في دارفور، وزارة الصحة في المستشفى الإقليمي أو الريجونال هوسبيتال ما بتدفع عليك، أنت دكتور تعرف يدوك المستشفى، بيدوك البند الأول فقط، الرواتب. To run the hospital is your responsibility. You have to do crazy things, business, بالدواء، بفند بكده عشان تجيب الاوبريشن كوست وباي الانسنتيفز وحياه الناس الشغالين. فهي دائره كامله ما هي بس المركز الصحي والشفاخانه، وان شاء الله من خلال اليونيفرسال هيلث كفرج الناس اللي يطبقوا الابروتش الصحيح بنوصل لنظام صحي عالمي ان شاء الله.
عندنا room for a couple of questions.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شيخ محمد شريف. بس انا عندي تعليق عن الموضوع اليونيفرسال والمقارنه بين كندا وامريكا واضافه يعني لان في حاجه من حاجات اهتماماتي. بس في فرق بين لما نتكلم عن كندا واوروبا ونتكلم عن امريكا باعتبار انه الانفولفمنت بتاع الجفرمنت في حياه الناس بيحددها الويل اوف ذا بيبل، ما التكنيكال ولا البرايفت اورجانيزيشن. ويل اوف ذا بيبل ديسايدز يعني المشرعين هم زي decide how much involvement. أمريكا قايمة على limited government concept. يعني حتى الأمريكان كلهم يقولون نعمل universal health care، الكل ده كلهم على علمه period. عشان كده لما تمشي لكندا وأوروبا المنتاليتي هناك مختلفة. هم هناك دايرين الجفرمنت to involve further and further to resolve their issues. في أمريكا لا، based on history بتاع 300 سنة الملك جورج وأوروبا عشان عندهم خوف شديد جدا من سلطة الدولة. عشان كده الكونسرفتيف بالمناسبة هي ما عندها علاقة بالدين في أمريكا، هي عندها علاقة بالبيليف that limited government is the best and most effective way to run our public institutions. فده بالنسبة how much privatization will go. This is the way of the people.
Yeah, I think شريك في الموضوع بتاع يعني when you look at CMS which has a Medicare and Medicaid program, this is the biggest insurance company in United States. I mean, they are the one who pay for all of that. And this is a government kind, whether it's a state or federal government, both of them, they are paying for health care. So even the health care is the government in a way, whether politically and maybe publicly they are not saying that, but they are actually, they have the safety net hospital, they are the one who the last resort always.
Okay, so يعني طبعا صح الحكومة الأمريكية هي biggest insurer of everything يعني I agree with you. طيب الحاجة الثانية.
Yeah, the taxation comes from people who pay. Yeah.
But my point is still the people حتى في السودان هم اللي هيقرروا إذا هم دايرين universal ولا دايرين combination بتاع privatization كده. يعني will of it can change الحاجة اللي دايرينها. الحاجة الثانية أعتقد الموضوع بيبقى في البرفورمانس بتاع administrative state. الحكومة الأداء الدولة الأداء متفقين عليه إنه ما في أداء. وده رجعني لي سبب الحاجة دي. رجعني للتاريخ الأمريكي ذاته يعني قبل 150 سنة كان في حاجة اسمها السبويل سيستم، السبويل ادمنستريتيف سيستم. يعني بيجي بيحكم إذا الحزب فاز بيشيل الموظفين الدولة كله وبيشيلوا برا، بيجيب ناسه. وحصل فيها كوربشن شديد جدا جدا. ففي 1872 في حاجة اسمها بندلتون أكت عملوا دراسة أداء الدولة الادمنستريتيف ستيت والريفورت بتاعتهم جاء ببندلتون أكت وقال بعدين هنقوم كل الهيومن ريسورسز والتوظيف بتاع الحكومة أو الببليك أوفيسز هتكون ميريت بيست، هيكون فيها education, experience, testing, knowledge كده. فحصل بعد ذلك نقلة كبيرة جدا في أداء الببليك انستتيوشن في الولايات المتحدة من البندلتون أكت. ده البداية الحقيقية للتطور. احنا طبعا جاء عندنا الفساد بتاع انه شالوا الناس الكويسين كلهم وجابوا ناس بلس احنا اصلا الديموكراسي اديوكيشن او الفهم الديمقراطي ما عندنا، يعني احنا لسه ما عندنا سيبريشن اوف باورز. بيجي بيمسك بيكون هو القاضي هو الحاكم كده. وشكرا جزيلا.
Sure. In the last two
طيب شكرا. حقيقة كل presentations are very impressive today, and it's really amazing the amount of brain power and the amount. Like the most important is passion. For example, Dr. Nazik, really, I'm very impressed by your passion and how you care about this. It's not just that; it's the way you deliver the information. I mean, I'm more of a technical person. I look at crunching numbers. But I'm very impressed by I understood everything that you said as an example. لكن يا جماعة, now we're talking about comparing Sudan when we talk about other systems, Canada, US, Europe, there's no comparison at all. In you think about everything. Third, we forget that 30 years of destruction, of intentional destruction, that change everything. Nothing in Sudan can be based on theory or research or data. because everything was subject to the dictator and his people. They decide whatever they want. So there is no comparison. Sudan need rebuilding from the beginning. And I'm saying this as a comment, and if you agree with that. So we need to think about a different, and if you agree, model for Sudan. As far as how we're going to rebuild the institutions, all of it, educational health and this, educational health and everything. The other thing, tomorrow I have a presentation because I care about infrastructure. That's my specialty. I looked at schools, they're destroyed, public schools. And there is private schools there, they're doing fine, but they're too expensive. The same thing, Dr. Abbas, you talk about tuberculosis. And I had an experience and I want you to comment on it. I went and I met one guy, his family is in the hospital, which is very shameful. There are no bathrooms. It's in Omdurman. No bathrooms for the patient. I mean, can you imagine a patient in a hospital when they want to relieve themselves? They have to go outside. Where they go? They go outside. So this is a amount of destruction that we have and how we can change that and build that. I think we need to think differently about the different model. And I'm not sure if you agree with me or you have other suggestions.
ميسر M.D. طيب اسلام. أول حاجة عايز أشكر البريزنترز كثيرا المعلومات الضافية اللي قدموها وجميلة جدا ومفيدة جدا لكل الناس. داير أشكر دكتور نازك على إنها هي بدأت البريزنتيشن بتاعها بوقت مهم جدا جدا. أنا يمكن أنا بشتغل في الاثنين المجال بتاع الهيلث والهيومن رايتس اللي هو الربط بتاع الهيلث سيرفيسز بالهيومن رايتس باعتبار انه الخدمات الصحيه والاكسس للهيلث سيرفيسز ذاتها هو حق. فهي دي ذاتها حاجه احنا المفروض نغيرها في المنتاليتي بتاعتنا ذاتها، العقليه بتاعتنا احنا ذاتنا كمواطنين وكحكام وكمقدمين للخدمات الصحيه للشعب بتاعنا. انه احنا نكون عارفين انه الخدمه الصحيه هي ما منا ولا هبه من الدوله، هي حق من حقوق المواطن زي حاجات ثانيه. والمربوطه بها برضه في الحته دي اللي هي برضه الحق في التعليم برضه. فليه هم حقوق احنا المفروض نتعامل معاهم كحقوق. المجال الصحي عندنا في السودان مشاكله كبيره ومتجذره ومتفرعه ومتغلغله في مجالات كثيره شديد. يمكن عشان نقدر يعني نعمل الاصلاح اللي هو دي المرحله بتاعت البناء، المرحله الجايه دي المفروض احنا كونسيدر كل الحاجات دي ونبدا باننا نشوف الدياجنوزي ذات اصلا المشكله هي شنو عشان نقدر نعمل التريتمنت بلان بتاعتنا ونقدر بعد ذلك نبدا نعمل. القصه الفعليه بتبدا من الفكره ذاتها بتاعت مثلا في حكومه زي الحكومه الحاليه. الهيلث سيرفيس هي مخطوطه بالنسبه للدوله، هي انفستمنت. الدوله عايزه تطلع منها قرش في حين انها هي اصلا المفروض تكون هي مثلا العكس، ان انت هي خدمه، هو مجال بتاع سيرفيس، هو مجال بتاع خدمه. الصحه مجال خدمه، التعليم برضه المفروض يكون مجال خدمه، لكن هو مجال بتاع استثمار. دي اشكال. الاشكالات اللي بتمر بكل الهيلث بروفيشنالز بتبدا معاهم يمكن من التعليم. هم ذاتهم مثلا في يعني الجامعات الموجوده كلنا شفنا، يعني لو نتكلم عن المجال الحكومي الاثنين مطلوبين، الرابيديزم مطلوب، الخاصه ممكن تكون مطلوبه او التعليم الخاص مطلوب، الببليك التعليم الحكومي مطلوب، لكن كل واحد فيهم المفروض يكون تابع بالصوره المناسبه باسس وبالقواعد. الحاجه في الاثنين احنا معنا. ممكن تلقى مدرسه ثانويه كانت في حته نائيه جدا جدا من حتات السودان، ولا كده فجاه تلقى فيها ثاني يوم يافطه، تلقى دي معارف كليه شنو ولا كليه الطب، تلقى لك عماره في نص السوق المعارف الفلاني ولا الحي الفلاني، بعد يومين تجي جهه خاصه تشتريها تدوك فيها يافطه تقول لك معارف كليه شنو ولا الطب. فده اشكال كبير اللي هو بيبدا من الحته بتاعت التعليم ذاته. بتجي في بتاعت التعليم الحكومي تلقى انه مثلا احنا طبعا الجامعه ما عندنا سيستم اصلا ذاته وما عندنا بلان، دي الحاجه اللي اخذين بها في النهايه. لكن لما تيجي تشوف الحكايات الحكوميه مثلا تلقى انه الطلبه دي ما موفر لهم البيئه المناسبه، موفر لهم الامكانيات المناسبه عشان هي اصلا تطلعهم في اي مجال من المجالات الصحيه الناس مؤهلين لانهم يقدموا الخدمه دي لقدام. اول ما يتخرج من الجامعه تيجي مرحله بتاعت قبل ما يشتغل الحته بتاعت التريننج، الجهات المسؤوله من التريننج، ناس المراعي المجلس الطبي، الجهات التدريبيه، التخصصات، المجلس التخصصات، حاجه زي دي برضه فيها اشكالات كبيره شديد. دي مشكله برضه المفروض الناس تفوكس حولها. بيطلع من المرحله دي ذاتهم عشان يشتغلوا سواء في الجامعات يعني في التيشنج وكذا ولا يشتغلوا حتى في المجال الخاص، تلاقي مشاكل كثيره شديده، المشاكل بتاعت التعيين بالولاء وغيره، المشاكل بتاعت اللو الفيري لو انكم اللي بيخلي الناس بعد ذاك تكون يا اما تضطرد لاسباب سياسيه او تهيج تكويت البلد لاسباب ثانيه. الحاجات كثيره شديده. انا ممكن اختم بس بحاجه واحده اللي هي ارجع ثاني للحته بتاعت انه احنا دايرين عندنا مشكله بتاعت سيستم واستراتيجي، وداير اقول انه احنا في وكانا السؤال بيبقى موجه لنا احنا، وهو سؤال واقتراح في نفس الوقت انه احنا يكون عندنا كوميتي من الناس العلماء الاجلاء الموجودين فيها، انه الناس تقعد مع بعض وتعمل بلان واضحه لانه الناس ممكن تعمل شنو في السودان وتتعاون مع الجهات الثانيه زي الناس الشغال مثلا في سابا وصحه وغيره وتشوف انه الناس ممكن تعمل شنو في نفس الوقت تتعاون مع الحكومه الموجوده هناك، لكن تكون في حاجه جديده والناس تقعد وتقول 1 2 3 وتقدم القصه دي في صوره مدروسه وتبدا الكولابوريشن مع الناس الموجودين فيها. شكرا لكم كثير.
There is one last question here. Can you be quick and summarize it?
Actually, my question, two of them are covered, the preventive medicine or emergency medicine. لكن I want to contribute to the debate between public and private funding for the or public and private health في السودان reform. I think we need to differentiate between two things. And when we say public, is it government-run healthcare system or government-funded healthcare system? لأنه المشكلة الأساسية هي private for profit، يعني clinics ولا hospitals ولا educational يعني institutions. عشان كده السؤال بتاعي هيكون يعني what we meant by يعني الدكتور نازك، يعني انه are you more passionate about government run? Is this old Soviet model ولا you're thinking about يعني non يعني it's a private, it's a non-profit, it can be public funded, whatever the form يعني الموداليتي بتاعت الفندنج دي مختلفة بعدها.
ابتدي بالاخر اللي هو افتكر انه اتس يعني نيفر ما كان عندنا absolutely public يعني universal health coverage في كندا بس ما عندنا بس يعني الناس حتى لو قاعد يجي مستشفى خاصة ما تاكلوش مشكلة يعني لما نشتغل بالعلاج لما نمشي نلاقوا دكاترة بالميزة يعني دائما we never had that absolute نقول على public system. لكن أنا I meant إنه maybe a non-for-profit organization لكن القوانين بتاعته is too complicated. Maybe one day and government has to spend some money, has to back some institutions to treat the poor. There's no doubt about that. You have to have some sort of government intervention, government funding, and maybe there will be some other ways of funneling public money into the institution. Lakin it's never should be completely private. Completely private means somebody is doing it for profit. But here it's about proprietary medical institutions. Here it's proliferating. ما حتى في Sudan بس في a lot of low and middle income countries. So it's happening all. So I don't want يعني نفتكر مثلا في سكينية بتاع سليم. المفروض الناس تقعد تشوف which are the best private schools they can still operate. Okay? They can لكن يختاروا يعني حتى ما يصير تخصصات والأدوية المريض يكون عنده oversight عليه. ما يكون outside the system، ما يكون outside the legal يعني لازم يكون في شركة governance للميديكال institutions. ف we don't need 70 مدرسة 70 medical school فاتحة في محلات عجيبة جدا. طبعا هذا حوالي بقى جامعة اللي هي we need it desperately to يعني train the teachers في primary school في secondary school. يعني الكونسبت بتاع الكذا حاجة لازم تخصص لازم أي يعني بتاع مدرسة يتباع عشان يبني في بيوت هي دي التطبيق يعني التطبيق الكونسيبت ده بتاع public health. يعني مثلا بتاعت حوادث الحرب دي جزء من الصحة. يعني المفروض تكون في إذا احنا عايزين بنمشي UN Sustainable Development Goal prevention of traffic and injuries is a big component of it. عشان كده مثلا بتاعت السيستم لما نتكلم السيستم ده بيكون جزء منه. يعني مثلا كونك انت تقعد 30 سنة ما تبني لك شارع هاي واي بين الخرطوم والمدني وبين العبور يعني ده اذا خلينا الناس الغرب بس حتى الناس الغرب ده بيستعملوا الناس الغرب ما بيتخرطوا all the time عشان تجيب treatment. So they also die يعني في الشارع ده. اللي هي عندك شارع واحد بس كده يعني كأنك ماشي غير في أمريكا يكون هو شارع بتفصل. اللي هي حوادث الموت is enormous. ما في infrastructure على العربات. يعني مثلا في نيروبي بتنزل 100,000 عربية في الشارع لكن بنفس الشوارع القديمة. هي دي مشكلة طبعا في أفريقيا كلها. لكن عندنا أكثر لأنه يعني يستوردوا عربات كده. So it's يعني public health is connected to how we deliver healthcare system ولازم يكون عندنا way of thinking. الحاجة بتاعت new models يقول لازم يكون عندنا new models. One of the way of new models إنه يعني الحكومة كلها تقوم مثلا دايما نصلح لا نقوم مع بعض نقعد ونحاول نشوف طريقة نصلح الموضوع. ليه بقى نعتمد على الحكومة to support our people in that sense. يعني احنا كمية من الناس بنمشي بندرس بتاعنا الوحدات بتاعتي بغير قروش. So we can what we need to do is to streamline the interventions اللي بنعملها وده بيكون نوع من الموديل الجديد اللي هو احنا درسنا من الجامعات دي بالمجاني وصح طبعا من البلد ما بإرادتنا لكن we can now contribute بإرادتنا وده كله من الموديل الجديد. I think it will be very very effective.
And I think 80 to 90% of hospitals في أمريكا هنا ده non-for-profit organization. So non-for-profit organization or public at the same time, I mean, you're going to have the support of the government or the state for all of those hospitals because the cost of medical care is really very high, especially education. Education is always supported by CMS and so on. They pay about $100,000 per resident per year في أي من ال teaching hospitals and so on. فأنا بفتكر إنه المارج between ال public sector or private sector has to be there. إذا كان في بعد السودان يستغل شوية وبعدين يكون في private sector which is really contributing للاقتصاد بتاعنا, then we will be talking about private. For the time being, نحن عندنا زي جنازة البحر يعني health system. From wherever you take it, بتلقاه إنه بيتهايل. يعني if you don't have good infrastructure, that is going to lead to accidents, and accidents will lead to health, problems and so on. So everything is interconnected at the end of the day between economy, health and education. But we have to start somewhere. الكلام عن إنه هل الأشياء اللي نتكلم عنها هي بتصل للحكومة الجديدة or not, دي الحاجة اللي احنا بنفتكر بأنه يوم 27 جايين من ده. We have to have a meeting and we have to have all the organization here in the United States that have to sit together and they have to put proposals because they are not going to go it alone. And the government by itself is not going to go it alone. We cannot force them into it. But we have to work together لأنه we have to be dependent for the time being on the WHO, United Nations and so on, all the money which is coming from affluent countries, to low-income countries like Sudan. So now we are not an island, we are part of the whole world and we have to be part of that system and we have to accept money so that we could lift up our people and our country.
Okay. Thank you so much for the expert panels and thank all of you guys for attending this session. I think just one last word, if there is a will, there is a way. And I think there is enough will among Sudanese new generation or older generation. And the other thing is, we're not working out of a vacuum. I think this talk took me mentally back to the first talk. How we want to pay for this taxation, which tax system we want to use to pay publicly or privately, or a marriage between public and private. How the Sudanese people want to pay. Are they going to pay the taxes? You remember Neda talk about compliance with taxation. What type of taxation? The health sector does not generate money. Educational system does not generate money. They eventually generate money by the outcome. However, for the outcome to happen, we have to support it, we have to fund it. How are we going to fund it? And I think this goes back to people of Sudan, go back to the new government, how they want to fund this, what kind of taxation, and if people are willing to participate in their own education and healthcare. There is nothing free in the world. We have to pay one way or the other. Thank you guys.